Three, two, one. Welcome to the Dave of the Dog Trainer podcast 236. We are being joined for the third time by Leandro from Merge Canine out in Spain. Let's get him on. What's happening?
Ready? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Cool. Hi, Josh.
Hey, how are you? Look at that beautiful
man,
hair.
I know.
Thank you.
That flowing
locks.
I think I've been growing it since our last pod, actually.
Yeah.
Roughly. Yeah.
I'm here for it. I wish I had the patience for that. I remember back in the day, I used to want the super long hair. And I tried to do it a couple times.
Yeah. I'm doing it, but I'm not nearly anywhere as close.
Yeah, there you
Look
go.
at that.
There you go.
I'm trying.
Sick. You got to just put up with the awkward phases, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that's me right now. I'm like hat every day because no one wants to see it.
Fair enough. Now I've been wearing like a beanie the whole winter, just sort of covering it up.
Yep.
How you doing?
No.
How's everything
Good,
going
man.
on over there?
Good. Some interesting cases I've taken up on lately with some interesting dogs, interesting situations. Yeah. Lots of work at the moment, so that's cool. But definitely kind of drained at the end of the day for sure.
Yeah. Do you guys get this is probably a very dumb, ignorant question, but do you guys get a lot of the similar types of behavioral cases and issues and needs and stuff like that, out there as we would get here?
Dude, I was talking about this with we were talking about dogs in Germany and how. Sorry, we were talking about dogs in Germany and Switzerland recently with a friend of mine, and it was like, oh yeah, fair enough. We can assume that because all the in Switzerland, it's impossible to use even crates, right? And so our argument was well, if they don't generally permit heavy dogs, if they're already restricting the types of dogs you can acquire and so forth, and everything is quite responsible and sort of in Germany, nobody touches your dog on the street.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And even asking for permission to touch some random person's dog, it's almost frowned. It's weird, right? You don't do it.
Yeah.
So you generally see way less behavioral cases, and dogs are kind of minding their own business to some degree. Whereas here in Spain, the general culture of dog having ship is very much oh, dog is communal. There's a dog there, so let me go approach it. My dog should be able to say hi to your dog. It's almost the general culture is geared around this free-for-all sort of interaction, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So for sure in Spain, I think I see a lot more behavioral cases.
Yeah.
One thing I've been noticing a ton, I've got since the beginning of the year, I had maybe 4 or 5 puppies with social human reactivity stuff. And one thing I realized is yeah, of course that's going to happen if you just let everyone say hi to your dog.
Yeah.
With the wrong dog, right? A couple of puppies were super sensitive, and they just became reactive really quickly. I'm talking they're 5 to 6, 7 months old and already just barking away at random people.
Yeah.
Because they've just been flooded, basically, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What sort of stuff do you guys get, generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the culture out here is that pretty much of dogs are now everybody's new children, right? So they go everywhere, they do everything, they are constantly expected to be able to socialize with every person, animal, and environment that they're presented with. So the issues are just all of the issues you would expect to experience by basically putting dogs in numerous unnatural situations, So
yeah.
It's interesting because, you were talking about how in Germany and Switzerland and stuff like that, there is such a restriction on what you can and can't do with dogs, which I'm sure has just naturally selected certain dogs that work for that or don't work for that. Mm-hmm. And you said there is correct me if I'm wrong, you said you feel there's less behavioral issues out in some of those areas. Is that correct?
I'd have to go back to Germany and or go to Switzerland for a while to sort of give you a full on this is facts.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I hear way less crazy reactivity stuff happening over there.
Yeah. And isn't it kind of, it gets you into that weird debate of like, is all of the restrictions that they put on things a net positive in the macro or a negative? Because in the micro, it's a net negative, right? Because like a lot of people probably are now put in positions where they have dogs they've been able to manage to whatever degree of success, and now they can't manage them anymore, so they have to get rid of them, they have to put them down, they have to whatever struggle more, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in the macro, we're weeding out a lot of dogs that don't fit into that kind of environment and making the base, we're kind of like raising the baseline of more stable dogs in the big picture, it feels like, you know?
Man, actually, like, funny enough, I was just thinking about this the other day. There's a long time, he's probably been in the business for like 20 plus years, really recognized positive only trainer here in Barcelona. And I remember having a chat with him a couple years ago, and he was saying that dogs now are like messed up in comparison to when he started.
Yeah.
In just from a genetic standpoint. Like he was making an argument for how dogs were much sturdier when he started. And I was like, interesting that even you who maybe aren't dealing with like insane cases, generally speaking, obviously making a bit of a straw man argument for positive only trainers. That's not my point.
Sure.
Like I would assume he doesn't get like super hectic cases, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying that. So I was like, oh, interesting that you've been around for so long and you've seen it change. And I think there is something to be said about like, yeah, we have a sort of symbiotic relationship with dogs, and we are, for better or worse, selecting these traits out or in. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes the I'll put it in that term, like the overconsumption of dogs, so to speak, is making it so that dogs are not catching up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, how are they supposed to evolve to deal with all kinds of stressors in the street, in the mall, in a car, here, there, that, the other, at a really young age also? Just like, oh, here you go. Let's go to the farmer's market with our 5-month-old puppy and just, it's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't think they're catching up.
Yeah, yeah. And what was he correlating that? Like, so he said he felt they were sturdier before. I guess, like, when he says sturdier, like, what did he mean by that? And then I guess, what did he correlate to the less sturdiness of it? Was he talking more like environment, like how we're, what we're doing with dogs and stuff?
I think he was mainly referring to the, like, when we say environmentals, right? Like how, again, we'll use the same word again, sturdy in terms of, can they take in noises, like random things coming into the frame, a random dog appearing somewhere, a random person, stuff like this, just like less nervy, if you want.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was working with this German Shepherd the last week that we had it for just like a 1 week little reboot thing while his owners were out of town. And they had expressed interest that the dog is possibly going to become a service dog for the one family member, and they were expressing interest in possibly being able to fly with him in the future and this and that. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of training past. I mean, the dog is very trained, honestly. He really doesn't have any behavioral issues or anything. But we started working on things to try to simulate flying with dogs. So like taking him on our like local like train and stuff like that, and like getting him used to the seats and how you got to kind of load onto it and the foot traffic and the motion and the turbulence and all that. And it was so crazy. Like I remember me and Paige, the girl that films a lot of our video stuff, we finished the session and he did like so good with it. We were just like, we looked at each other, we're like, Jesus Christ, like this is just a stable ass dog, man. Yeah. like he got on the train, and this train is just like, it's shaking all over the place. There's people walking 2 inches away from him, and he couldn't have been less phased by any of it. And it's just, damn, I was like, man, like this is like what everybody wants when they get a dog or a German Shepherd or whatever. It's just that dog that is just so unfazed by environmentals. And yeah, man, like if we created a culture that just brought out more of that and accepted less of that, like, yeah, it's a get back to the like macro micro of things. It's such a tough debate because I'm like, man, like we should only be breeding dogs like that, right? We should only be selecting and putting dogs in homes that are like that. But like, unfortunately, too many people have unstable dogs now at this point. And that's where I struggle with sometimes, like some of the conversations about like, more strict legislation on things. Forget the tool conversation, but just like, what dogs we allow in society versus don't allow in society versus how we handle dogs that are in shelter systems and which ones we give the shot to versus don't give the shot to. And I do struggle with that sometimes.
There's so many factors to consider. Now you mentioned the whole shelter situation. Like one of my clients currently, this dog's been through 6 trainers and the 7th now. And it's like some weird rescue organization from some like hunting thing. Bro, the dog's messed up.
Yeah.
Messed up. And like, because you, when I say you, the client, just get the dog at random. You have no prep, no nothing. You're just like, oh, let's save the dog.
Yeah.
And then you start trying to find ways to train it, or in quotes, train it. And so you go to this person, you go to that person, nothing really moves the needle.
Yeah.
And she ended up going to this sort of, what's the word? Sort of old school trainer. And he was like, she was a bit weirded out by the prong collar. So he flattened the prongs for her.
He flattened them, you said? Oh, like flipped it upside down, you're saying, or what?
No, he literally just like with a tweezer just flattened them out, like made a like basically a flat collar out of it.
Okay. I thought that's why people just flip the prong around then at that point. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but that was like an old thing people used to do.
Yeah, that would have probably been smarter.
Yeah.
But so this dog has learned to pull basically on a flattened out prong collar.
Yeah.
They also did e-collar training with him very incorrectly.
Sure.
Like very incorrect, like this, like super skittish with any low stim stuff. Like it's such a long process to recover this dog to finally get it to be proactive in society, right?
Yeah.
And so now, like with her, I have a year-long contract simply because we have to do all this work to finally reach her end goal, which is having the dog off leash and well trained and not reactive and not resource guarding and like just stacking, right? But it's like, bro, why do we even have to start there?
Yeah.
Like, why are we? I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand the whole idea of like, we need to find places for these dogs to be, but let's just not give them out to random people and also not train them correctly and then just hand them out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah. I had a conversation one time with a buddy up in Canada, and we were having, sometimes you'll get into these like crazy hypothetical conversations where it's like, we're not like condoning doing this, but like, like what if, and we had the conversation of like in shelters, what if any dog that displayed even the smallest hint of aggression, they just automatically just fixed, right? Like they euthanized them. They had a absolute zero tolerance to any of that, right? Growling, biting, lunging, things like that, right? And we were kind of playing that hypothetical conversation of like, if shelters did that, right? What would the world look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, as far as our culture that we have with dogs? And the other side of the conversation, so you could look at that and be like, oh, well, like dogs would just be able to go out and there would just be, it'd be nothing but dogs like Atos, the German Shepherd that I was talking about, that goes out and is just super environmentally sound and there's no concerns and life is good and this and that. But also, would it create new problems because you now have a society that you could now put dogs in even more crazy, unnatural situations than what we're, the baseline of the stupid shit we're doing with dogs then just gets raised even further to a point where then those dogs can't even tolerate some of the situations we're putting them in,
Yeah.
Oof, that's there is this sentiment rolling around now in some circles where like we don't have to get super fatalistic about it, but the general point is like capitalism has cannibalized itself.
Sure.
And those circles sort of fulfill themselves in many situations, like what you just mentioned there, right? And to some degree, we are doing that if you think about it, right? We are moving the needle. One of the things one of the sort of topic layouts I have for you later is, because we're going to be talking about e-collars for sure. It's like this whole, like now, for example, everyone wants to have the multi super functional sport pet.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're just like, okay, this dog can focus, heal, but he can also relax, but he's also super drivey, but he's also this. And it's like, I can put him here, I can put him there, da-da-da.
Yeah.
And it's like too much. And then you end up like cannibalizing itself, right? It's just like more.
Yeah. Where's
the end?
Yeah. Okay. Right. How did you describe that? You said everybody wants the soup. What was how did you say that?
I think it's like the super functional pet, sport pet, if you want, right?
Yeah, and what does that mean to you? Like, what does that look like?
To me, and I see it on social all the time. It's like the maybe off breed or mixed breed, like doesn't have to be a Mali per se, but I do see a lot of people with like the bull herders or Mali Dutchies, or just even off breeds at this point, right? The dog can do crazy sports stuff, or at least a very pretty focus heel and like kind of flashy obedience stuff, and is also like under pet-ish program whereby he can do downstays at a distance, can do this, socially aware, has great recall. Like you've fill out the list yourself, right? It's just like everything we can make a dog do, we'll make him do it because we can train it to such a degree now, right?
And when you say everybody you feel wants that, obviously I know you don't actually mean literally everybody. Who do you see that you feel really wants that? Because I feel like none of my clients are interested in that.
Huh, interesting. How so?
I feel like my clients, like for the most part, right, want a dog that is going to be socially really sound, right? That I would say 70% of them, I'm pulling that number out of my ass, obviously. 70% of them want a dog that they could take off leash so they can go throw a ball and, go for hikes and things like that. And the rest of them just want a dog that doesn't terrorize their guests that come over the house, whatever that looks like, whether it's they could hold a downstay or they just don't jump all over people or don't bark at them and stuff. And can like take them for a walk around the block. But I would say like very, very, very little of my clients are interested in actually wanting this like precision level of obedience with their dogs.
And I think the general pop is more circling around what you just said. Let me refine. When I say everybody, I mean sort of the what's a good description? It's like the sort of new school, I have a dog and I have extra time. It's kind of like the new hobby owner, so to speak.
Yeah. I get what
if you
saying. Like they're doing like, they want to do like hobbyist sport dog stuff with their dog because it looks cool and it's fun and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, how much of that, as far as I think from a trainer standpoint, yes, most trainers out there these days that you see on social media are pushing this idea of like, like the socially sound, insert your term that you used, obviously, with like, oh yeah, look at my dog doing some like fancy, like call it tricks or whatever, higher level, obedience drills, like out in like a public space or something like that. And I wonder sometimes if, you said like you feel a lot of people want that. The clients that do want that, like let's say you have an average dog owner that is the like, hey, I've got some extra time, my dog is my hobby, this and that. The ones that do want that, is that just because there is a trainer that is pushing that should be the thing that they're doing, right? And is that why in my case, my hobbyist dog owners that I find are the ones that generally speaking, if they have the extra time, want to just like go off leash in a field and like be able to throw a ball or go hiking and stuff. Because just as a trainer, that's what I'm pushing. That's what I like to do with my dogs to be able to kind of fulfill them and provide outlets. And are the clients just at the like the mercy, not in a negative way, of just like what the trainer is interested in doing and adopting those hobbies for themselves then at that point, Yeah,
you bring up an interesting point. I feel like with how social media works nowadays, it's kind of you fall into your own rabbit hole, right? Like if your algorithm will push whatever you want to see to some degree. And so I tend to get the halfway through clients. The I would love to get rid of the reactivity and all the other nuisance stuff. And how cool would it be if I can also have a super nice fluid contact heel, focus heel, whatever thing, and go and live my life with this dog also in that way. The new one that I'm getting now, and I'm having to learn more about it, is for some reason I get like a ton of hunting dogs. And so it's like, oh, well, let's do detection. Like we'd love to make this dog viable for detection. I think something there too to mention is the proliferation of, we need breed fulfilling stuff to do for our dogs so that they won't be reactive, in quotes. Right, that's a big thing online now, right? It's like fulfill your dog's specific breed tasks so that they can have a fulfilling life, right? So I think people are gravitating towards, whether it be I have a mal, and let me do some bite work with it, right?
Yeah.
Or let me do some obedience, or I have a pointer, I have a this, I have a that. Let's do some detection work and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, and that's even something I've been, over the last couple of years, probably last year and a half or so, like really kind of not pushing on my clients, but I've been making it a more conscious effort to really make sure that's not just included in what I'm doing with the dogs, because I've always done those things with the dogs when they're with me, but building it into the like treatment plan once the dog goes home, and I've definitely found that to be impactful for like there are so many circumstances where we do need to just put the kibosh on behavioral issues, right? Or teach the dog, hey, regardless of if you're feeling fulfilled right now or not, right? You gotta keep it together here, But if we could be stacking as much as possible, some of those outlets in all the other places, it's going to make it a lot more tolerable for the dog to be able to accept that when they are feeling a little bit rambunctious or unfulfilled, if you will, right? So yeah.
Something else I think worth mentioning is in Europe, since everything, I think there's only 4 countries that still allow tools in Europe, but everywhere else everything's banned.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have been moving into, like for example, there's a German trainer, IGP trainer. His name is Knut Fuchs. You see his mouths are walking off leash everywhere with like dumbbells in their mouths.
Yeah.
Or toys or whatever, right? That's it's like a strategy for him to have them occupied doing something so that they can coexist in society, so to speak, right? So what I'm trying to get at is, I think in Europe, because of all the restrictions, we're aiming, generally speaking, a lot of trainers are now aiming at making dogs more workable, so to speak, right? Like having them do stuff so that they can coexist more naturally, so to speak, right? Instead of, because we can't just publicly, like I couldn't do what you do. I can't just go out into a park and correct a dog on an e-collar. Not happening.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's find more workable methods.
Yeah.
Give dogs tasks all the time so that they can also learn to be desensitized from different things and whatnot, and keep it together.
And like, not that it's even like a conversation of which one's better, but like steel man, straw man, like the two kind of philosophies to me, if you will, like give me like, as you're seeing people do stuff like that more, right? Give me some like pros and cons to that you're kind of noticing. Because it sounds like they're solving the. Let me, if I'm understanding you correctly, right? They're trying to solve a lot of the problems that they would have seen dogs do by just giving them more direction or more things to focus on, almost to correct me if I'm wrong, kind of distract them from some of the things that otherwise they would have been getting in trouble with, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, did you happen to watch the Bow Wow Bill Ivan podcast that came out like 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago?
I did not watch that one. No.
Go watch that, and we can talk about it later in private. But it was really interesting. They were, at some point, Ivan gets asked about Nepopo and stuff like this, right? And he sort of, him and Bart have a long time relationship, and they're good friends and whatnot. But he was saying the whole dopamine box thing, which is kind of equivalent to what we're explaining here. You get the dog fixated on the dopamine box, and now you can, let's say for sports, you smack it with the bamboo stick, for example, right? Or your dog's reactive, and so we use the dopamine box so the new dog can come into the picture, and the dog is focused on the dopamine box, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Same with, you look at STS canine stuff, it's all about source focus.
Yeah.
Right? So we can make a dog look at a ball, and stuff can be happening around it, and we're desensitizing it while that happens, right?
Yeah.
Pros and cons, like Ivan said, and I agree, you are going to become reliant on that tool to some degree, right? The same argument can be had the other way, whereby if you're always negatively reinforcing a dog on prong or e-collar, you're also kind of always going to be dependent on that tool.
I agree with that.
Or yeah, sure, you can add positive punishment and get make a big impact on a dog, so to speak, until that wears out.
Yeah.
Right, because we all know that wears out at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, like,
right?
behavior is contingent on consistent reinforcement, no matter which of those quadrants you're using, right? Like, punishment will always require maintenance still, right? A dog will still always want to slip back into those behaviors, right? Just like positive reinforcement, just like negative reinforcement, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, for sure.
So I guess big picture, like, pick your poison. Like, you're still going to have to be doing stuff with your dog. And isn't that also kind of the point of having or doing training anyway? Like, you're doing stuff with your dog.
Yeah.
Kind of like you're always going to be doing stuff, right? The question is, I guess, what's more practical? What takes less steps? What's more user-friendly, attainable, quicker?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have the answers for that, honestly. Yeah, it's something I ponder all the time, right? It's like, if we could just like Knut Fuchs's dogs, if I can, and I do that technique all the time. I walk my dog in a contact heel with her tug toy in her mouth, and when we get to like in my new neighborhood now, there's like these houses with fences and super reactive dogs behind the fences. I make her hold the tug toy in her mouth while we're contact heel. We get there and then we play.
Yeah.
And so like slowly but surely, she's like, oh, let me hold this thing until we get there. We play, we walk past it. It's fine. And she doesn't have an issue with those dogs simply because we have that little ritual there. Now, I don't do that every day.
Yeah.
Right? Simply so I don't fall in the trap of I need her to be holding the tug toy or else. Yeah. Right? I've also taken care of the other side of like, no, even if they're reacting at you, you're chilling. Like, we've done counter conditioning with marker, without marker, with negative reinforcement, with pun, like, you name it. Like, you go through all the quadrants, make sure the thing is fun. Fine, sorry. And then, we can add a fun layer on top of it where, like, okay, carry your tug toy and we'll play there.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. I the carrying a toy thing, I never used to do a ton of that, and I still don't do a ton of that. But there was a dog that I worked with recently, a German Shepherd, that was just super space cadet-y and, environmentally weird and stuff. And ironically, I started on accident doing it with him, where like we would go play ball in the field and then he would just want to carry the ball around after, and then we would go for our walks through public spaces while he's carrying the ball. And it was insane, the notable difference in his behavior, like when he was just like had this ball in his mouth that he could just kind of squeak on when he wanted to and stuff. And that really, really helped him to continue to improve with like some of his environmental stuff. It was never like a force thing. It's not like I was like, oh, you have to hold this ball. It's just because he wanted to, and he could still focus while he was holding it. It was very impressive how much more he improved because of that. So I have
on your end for you there, is that like, so recently I was catching up on some of your recent podcasts, and there was a moment where you were someone had asked you something about wearing the e-collar long-term, et cetera. And you were like, well, if it works, why stop?
Yeah.
Right. Would you see this as something comparable?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, literally, you could tell me that, you fucking do 3 backflips before you start your walk every walk. And because of that, your dog is better. And I would tell you, if that's all it takes to get your dog to listen to you, like, do it, like, for sure. Like, I'm not married to like a method, right? I'm not married to, and this kind of starts to tie into some of your topics that you brought up, because you brought up like systemizing dog training and stuff. Like, I'm not married to a process or a system. And honestly, you could tell me that you not using the e-collar and, doing positive only training, as long as you did that and had your treat pouch on you, your dog was a perfect angel and you had no problems. And I'm like, hell yeah, right? Do it, right? As long as you don't have a problem doing that, and as long as the dog is listening the way you want them to, I've got no problem with it. Now, obviously, there are going to be some exceptions. If you tell me you do this thing and your dog is great, and I'm like, well, that will create a problem eventually, and we have to address that. But for the most part, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the big question is always, well, what happens when it isn't there? Are you ready for that?
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's where dog training really gets interesting. It's like, I have all these systems in place, but when I inevitably find myself in the position where I don't have the things I need, can I still do the things I need to do?
Yeah.
Can my dog still do those things, right?
Yeah.
So for me, generally speaking, at least in my philosophy, and again, I'm also not subscribed to any particular rule set or system. It's always like, cool, when the day comes, can the dog do XYZ?
Yeah.
Like the example, I always have a couple clients, they were like, oh, our dog got a bit like like developed a bit of separation anxiety, and I'm like, okay, let's go through it. Let's see what you guys are doing. Cause he used to have it. And it's like, yeah, he sleeps with us I'm home all the time, this and that and the other. I'm like, okay, cool. He sleeps in the bed with you guys. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
But what happens, and now it did finally happen. It's like the girl from the couple, she had like a pretty decent sized surgery. And it's like, okay, when you inevitably cannot sleep with your dog in the bed because your doctor said, hey, you must sleep alone.
Yeah.
Is your dog going to have like a full on meltdown because of that or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, well, everything kind of comes to an end at some point, and you need to have the back end for that. Right.
Yeah. And that's why, like I said, I look at, if there's something that I know will create a problem eventually, or if we're only doing it a particular way because, the alternative is something super detrimental, like obviously we have to reevaluate. It's like no different than like, this is a situation I actually ran into somewhat recently. Let's say you have a dog that like resource guards their food, right? And you have young children in the house, and you say, well, as long as I feed the dog in another room with the gate closed, there's not a problem, and he's great with the kids otherwise, right? And it's like, okay, but right, what if the management fails in that moment, and you run into a scenario where the worst case scenario of that situation is like one of your kids getting seriously hurt? It's like, that's not a viable solution. That's not that's not one of those scenarios where it's like, oh yeah, well, if it works for you, just keep doing that, right? Because that's a scenario I ran into somewhat recently with a family that had some new kids that had a dog with resource guarding, and they were able to feed the dog separately from the kids, and they did it for like a year and a half. And then one day, gate was left open, and the dog bit one of the kids pretty good, and they wound up needing to get rid of the dog, unfortunately. But
they wound up getting rid of it, yeah.
Yeah, because they called me about it. This is a dog that we trained the dog prior to them having kids. The dog had a lot of reactivity issues and stuff, and they had the kids. It was like 2 years post training, right? They were just kind of going through the motions, doing their own thing and stuff. And they were just managing the dog extremely well. And then they ran into a scenario, like I said, where they called me like out of the blue, like a couple of years later, like, hey, like we just ran into this situation. What do we do? They were like, oh, we know it's our fault, because, we forgot to, we had a good management strategy. We left the gate open, this, that. I was like, it is, but it isn't, because like
right.
You knew the problem was there to begin with. And we didn't have a plan to work through it, unfortunately, right? Because we didn't know that it was a problem that you were having with them, obviously. And anything at this point that you do aside from getting rid of the dog is like you picking your dog over your kids, which is just not like an acceptable decision to make, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily,
at what point there would you draw the line between management and training? Like how far would you stick your neck out to say this is trainable, solvable, technique wise, or command wise, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, or in general, when there's young children in the house, it's pretty much a zero risk tolerance for like if there's a potential that they're going to get hurt. Obviously there's always a potential that they can get hurt. You know what I mean? But if there's a known risk, right, of like, hey, we know that this is a possibility that this might happen, not just like, oh, well, maybe one day the dog might fucking flip a switch and go off the handle on a kid because they did something stupid. I have pretty much a zero tolerance policy for that. So, because like young children, like they can't consent to being in the house with a dog that might injure them. Right.
They have no way. They have no way of defending themselves.
Yeah. And like this is a situation where, like I said, had we known this was like a big problem with the dog, like when they had the kids in the first place, we would have had this conversation. But it's one of those things where it had always been an issue that they had well in the past it just wasn't an issue. Right. And they had the kids and just kind of were going through the motions on their own. So, unfortunately, we didn't realize it was a problem until it was a problem kind of thing. Yeah, though it sounds like they kind of knew that it was a problem, but no blame on that. They're great. They're great people. They're great owners. They did everything they could to manage the situation. Luckily, everybody was okay, obviously, but yeah. So yeah, when people contact me, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I have that situation, right? I have a dog that resource guards food and is a serious bite risk, and I'm going to be having a kid. Generally speaking, like I'll assess the dog first, but we usually have that conversation of like, this is going to be like too much of a safety risk,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rehoming him, sending him somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like I've luckily not been in the position to have to counsel someone into that decision just yet in my career, but it just recently I was like, there's been times where I'm like, oof, what is this? Why is this person owning a dog? I've had that a couple of times.
Sure.
Where like, bro, seriously, recently, like he won't listen to this, but like I went to a guy's house. House was a mess, smelled like weed. He might have been high 5 hours ago. I have no problem with smoking weed, by the way, but it's like, dude, you paid for a professional, like someone's coming to analyze your situation. Like at least don't show up high to the class.
Yeah, I've had that before a few times.
And it's for me, it's a big red flag, right? Because it's like, dude, your house is a fucking mess, and your dog has separation anxiety, this, that reactivity, like a number of situations that the dog is living. And I think you cannot get out of your own way to fulfill this dog.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that we should get rid of the dog. We maybe need to get rid of your situation and modify you. But I'm no one to say that to someone, right?
Yeah. It's like with people with kids, right? Like you see parents out there that like have kids that shouldn't have kids, right? Like it's like I do feel for all the situations because like, you know, in the case of dogs, like most of these people are just they're not most of them. There are a lot of people out there that they just don't have their life together. They're going through it themselves, right? They're anxious, depressed. They're struggling with keeping a job, right? They can't keep their household together, right? Stuff like that. And like to them, the dog is like the only stable thing that they have in their life, right? Not literally, because they're usually have behavioral issues.
Yeah, they're usually unstable as well.
But from a emotional standpoint, like that is like their rock. That is the thing like keeping them together through all the hard times. So yeah, I have a hard time in those situations. Like I have a lot of people that I know that I've really helped out in situations like that, where once you get them, like it's almost like you're giving them that, kind of like we were talking before about like the hobbies and stuff like that. Like you could help people in those situations sometimes like overcome a lot of like personal things by teaching them this newfound like responsibility and joy of like working with their dog. Right. I've seen
100%.
that before be this like them coming to their training classes with the dog, like helps them get out of some ruts that they're in sometimes, which I think is really cool. You know?
Yeah. I have fun sometimes when we, with a lot of my long-term plan clients, we talk about theory and we put the theory into practice. Like I basically make them dog trainers to some degree. And I like, not with every client, but the clients who maybe need a bit of psychological help, I use the theory side of stuff in dog training, like hopefully hinting at stuff they can solve for themselves also later outside of the class.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about dopamine and how quickly dopamine can spike in relationship to, again, drugs or bad habits, right? It's just like the same with your dog. And so if you can observe it in your dog, you can fix it in your dog. And if you can observe it and fix it in your dog, you're kind of in the position to do it for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, then it's up to them if they want to do it. But I have seen some people where I have indirectly, psychologically helped them, which is always comforting. So it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like it.
I do have a question, you know, because we were, you know, he said earlier, like in the U.S., a big thing for dogs and dog owners is their dog is like their child. Like it's, in the relationship with dogs in America is very like, this is my baby. Is it the same like level in Europe? Like where it's, obviously there's like, you know, like the dog's almost a family member. It's like almost the same level as your child. Like he was saying, it seems crazy, but people really do like have that struggle. Like maybe we should get rid of the dog because there is a problem, but they don't want to because they almost hold the dog in the same realm as their own child.
Yeah.
So is it like that in Europe, or is there a different like hierarchy on the family scale in Europe?
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, was it the beginning of this year or end of last year that they changed Spanish law to adapt so that what was it again? You can now, like the dog isn't an object or your property anymore. It is now considered a third party to your family nucleus.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so it has
put them down
gained
as a dependent now. like on your taxes.
Dude, so like I think someone in New York tried to get like tax reduction because of it too, like as if it was a child. And I think she might have won.
Wow.
But like dogs, generally speaking, now here, at least in Spain, they gained like new rights basically because of that.
Wow.
It's an interesting phenomenon for sure. Yeah. So they basically, like, for example, let's say David and I we're spouses and we separate. Like the dog would have to go through the same procedure as if we were giving up a kid, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or giving up a kid. Sorry, like who's going to be
Like
the
custody,
the custody? There you go.
Sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it's a thing for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering if that dynamic was different or not.
Yeah. So so obviously we had a couple topics we wanted to get into a little bit today. I guess I'm happy to get into any of them in whatever order. What types of topics are kind of new and exciting for you in the dog world these days?
So I've been investing a lot of time learning as of the last year and a half, going back to seminars, like signing up to tons of webinars and online courses and this and that, just trying to like maximize on that lately. And I've had the opportunity to join some pretty cool stuff. In fact, next week I'm doing Kynology number 4. So that's going to be interesting. I would have loved to have gone like in person, but Jesus, I have to go all the way to California for that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some new things I can share in terms of the activation stuff, which we've talked about before. I think I sent you the agency accountability framework from the Kynology group as well, which I think is quite revolutionary for the current state of affairs in dog training. The last seminar they did, which I thought was really cool too. They did it in. Do you know who Daisy Peel is?
Nope.
She's like a very well-renowned agility trainer.
Okay.
I can't remember the amount of time she's won like national championships and international championships and whatnot. And she's been very vocal about using aversives in agility, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
They gave their whole seminar in her facility with her clients and whatnot, and they were insisting upon, like in agility, apparently it's really a big thing to not tell the dog no.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I know the agility world is historically extremely force free, and especially when you got people like Susan Garrett, who's like one of the more well renowned agility trainers, who's very very big on like not even utilizing like negative punishment or anything like that,
Right.
errorless learning and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and so they were. It was interesting for me to see how.
Where are they using aversives in agility? That's one of those sports I kind of thought about. I guess I can understand certain things that you set boundaries for. Like I think the example Ivan used in his podcast with Susan Garrett was like the start and stop line. Like you have to have a very strict, like they got to stop within a certain range and stuff. But aside from that, it does feel like a very just like precision motivation based sport. Like I can't imagine a ton of control needed for it.
Ooh, if you think about it, like on pause tables. So, for example, if you go over the ramp, I can't remember the name of the ramp now, but there's a ramp whereby if the dog jumps off of it too quickly before touching the blue pad on the bottom, you lose points. And so you could add some level of aversive control and slowing the dog down, making them like a place command, like a brief.
Yeah.
Please touch this first and then go.
Sure.
The start and stop thing for sure. And then, for example, just having a rambunctious dog trying to like flee off course, this sort of stuff. What I saw during the seminar, during the working spots, which I found was really interesting, is that there was a ton of dogs who would lose their shit. Like would just lose it because it's like, well, I don't know how to acquire the reward.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what you're asking to do because there is no, like, you're not going to give me any feedback if I'm doing it wrong or if I'm even doing it right.
Yeah.
I kind of yes on the doing it right thing, but the dogs were clearly very confused, and that's also, and that's what Daisy was sort of explaining, is that's also incredibly aversive. Depends on which dog, right? The fact of not knowing how to move in a certain way or predict certain things so that they can then achieve what they're looking for and make you happy also, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that feedback it's intrinsically motivating for a dog to know that you approve of what they're doing and you're going to tell them whether they're on the right track or not. And if they don't know how to even get there, they just end up looping out. I saw some working spots where some dogs would just like, they would start something and it would look like they would have a zoomie, but in reality they were just super stressed. right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that, and just someone in the agility space saying, "No, dude, like negative punishment or omission, if you want, is aversive.
Yep,
it is
for sure.
punishment by definition. It's called it. That's why it's called punishment, right?
Yeah.
It reduces behavior, and sometimes it's to your advantage, and you want the dog to understand how to avoid that and how to gain advantage in that strategy, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing that came out of that seminar was the agency accountability framework thing, which I thought was cool in the sense of, on our first podcast, we talked about agency, autonomy, being able to, from the dog's perspective, right, being able to avoid aversives, being able to control the mechanical movement of stuff in order to avoid aversives or to position themselves favorably to gain a reward.
Yeah.
And that was something that the kinology group was very, very keyed in on. They were like, no. Welfare isn't about like stress in the sense of, is my dog stressed out or not? It's more, I can read it for you now, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think we can, I won't bring it up all the way because technically, and I'll urge your, or our listeners to go to the kinology.org website.
Sure.
You have to sign in. It's for free.
Yep.
But I don't want to, because I didn't ask them for permission. I don't want to just blow up their whole slideshow. But basically, Dr. Hilliard, Michael Ellis, and Forrest Mickey put this thing together. It draws from comparative psychology, animal welfare science, stress science, and relevant ethics and philosophy sources to characterize the essential features of the best current integrated dog training systems. By best, they say, they mean those systems engineered to be the most technically sophisticated, pragmatically effective, ethically defensible, and most consistent with good welfare for dogs and all other humans and non-human creatures in their orbit.
Yep.
For them, this is the big one. So dog welfare is best understood in terms of the presence or absence of the dog's sense of predictability and control rather than merely the presence or absence of stress.
What was the first part again?
Dog welfare is best understood in terms of the presence or absence of the dog's sense of predictability and control rather than merely the presence or absence of stress.
So their sense of predictability and control, meaning that not if there's stress or not, but if they could at least predict where and when the stress might happen so that they can reduce it. Is that kind of what am I understanding?
Correct.
That right? Okay.
So for example, a dog I've been working with recently, dude, I've been making the owner announce we've structured it so mechanically the dog knows each word, and every single walk, literally we've dumbed it down to every turn, every step, whether it's right, left, roundabout turn, inside turn, outside turn. We have a cue for each one.
Okay.
Right. I only do this for this dog because he's a nerve bag, but because we're announcing everything, and we've also shown him mechanically what to do with the leash, regardless of if he's wearing a flat collar, prong collar, doesn't matter. The dog understands exactly what that cue predicts. And because he understands what that cue predicts, he's been able to mellow out now. So, because this dog used to just whine and be crazy the whole time.
Yeah. So, okay. Hold on. Yeah. So you go for your walks, right? Like literally, whatever, we're queuing up heel means we're walking straight or whatever word you're using. Then we get to the turn left, right? Then we turn left, right? Then we turn right. And the idea here is any deviation from what we are actively engaged in, we are creating a signal for so the dog knows what's going to happen before it happens, right?
Correct.
So I guess my question for you is like, where are you drawing that line of, because like, maybe there's not. Maybe if I looked at it, I was going to say, it feels like there would be so many different things we would do. Being able to pattern in and condition in all of these individual words feels like a very daunting task. And is there too many of them to be able to do in like real life, right? Like I'm looking at like if there's 10 different cues that I would use on a walk, right? Like, wouldn't I need to like train all of those independently, which obviously is going to take quite a long process, and then obviously put them into play, and then we have to generalize them, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's the process looked like for you as far as doing this?
So I decided upon that strategy with this dog simply because everything else, it moved the needle, but I still saw the dog leaking incessantly all the time. And so I was like, okay, cool. he knows the negative reinforcement and the positive reinforcement side of each and every movement in a walk.
Yeah.
And so we kind of dumped down to like roughly 5 big key movements in a walk that he needs to understand.
Yeah.
We did positive reinforcement first, negative reinforcement second, and then we put cues on them, right? So it's like a marker predictor word. Mm-hmm. There's also consequences for not adhering to said predictor. Mm-hmm. 2, I lost my train of thought. Big picture though, the dog's ability to predict the future outcome keeps him steady. Sure. I remember now. Yes, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to remember. I have a notebook for each one of my clients. I have it all written down. They have a similar thing for themselves. And it's just like fading a lure. So at some point, I want the dog to key in on my body language on that, and that the body language is the predictor or the predictive cue rather than the word.
Yeah.
So I'm fading it out so that eventually over time the dog understands, oh, okay, cool. This movement predicts this pattern. I can now pattern in, and now I'm chill because I understand exactly what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not the strategy for every dog. Don't get me wrong.
No. And again, like I was talking about before, like it sounds like it's working. So obviously, like who am I to say?
Way less leaking. Way less.
So I guess my question though is, so let's just use the walk example, right? Because it sounds like is that the place you're using it the most? Is the walk? Would you say, or?
He leaks. I mean, don't get me wrong. This dog, like when we started, he would like, there was no moment where he wasn't leaking. And then the leaking would lead into reactivity, all kinds of stuff, right? Like this dog would bark at airplanes in the sky. Like anything that moves basically, right?
So we'll take,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so we'll take the walk, right? So your expectation on the walk, obviously you're queuing up your turns and your stops and this and that, right? But is your expectation of this dog on the walk, generally speaking, to be just walking by the owner's side, or?
Correct. We started not even trying to use like a what I call the bubble heel.
Sure.
Right. It's like, or loose leash walking rather, if you want, right? So it's like, I don't care if the dog is 20 centimeters in front of you in so much as the leash is not tight. Right. That's all I care about. Like leash gets tight, that's a no-no. But he can be behind you, in front of you, next to you. I don't care as long as that leash isn't tight. Then, obviously through reinforcement history and like marking him for his reactivity stuff and whatnot, he gets fed on his right side. Anyway, so we're reinforcing the heel whether we want it or not. So he ends up defaulting into that position anyway. And then I still notice that the dog is like, oh, but when am I going to get my break cue? Like, should I be here? Can I sniff? Can I not sniff? Like, no, relax. This is what's coming. Next step. This is the turn that's coming in 5 steps. This is this. And like slowly the dog is like, oh, cool. I know what we're doing. And we can see him just go. Don't get me wrong. You'll get there either way. Like your general method with the come command, you'll get there with that dog too. I just don't know how much, like, because for me personally, I hate hearing dogs leak. Unless it's in a sports setting.
I hate it there as well.
So you can't really correct. You don't correct for that though. No, you can't. Right.
It's just
so.
This is where I actually would be curious. Like people like Ivan and stuff who they compete in IGP, right? Like obviously vocalization is leaking is a sign of stress, right, for the dog. So like you can't have that in the high levels with it. I actually, this is something I don't actually know the answer for. How do they approach a situation of a leaking dog in the healing in IGP? Like, how do they go about getting the dog into the calm state of mind that they get them into? Or is that just like because we've all seen, like, there are some dogs that are worse with it than others, right? Or is it just like when you're competing at that high of a level, there are some dogs that just don't have the stable enough genes to be able to overcome and not leak on the training field, I don't know if you've looked into that at all.
There's some really cool techniques that have been developed in the last years. A really fun one that I found out like last year or so was you have a differential marker for omission, but it's like an omission with a pragmatic event that occurs afterwards. So for example, most sport dogs, they're not leaking because they're stressed due to too much negative reinforcement or punishment or whatever. No, it's just like, oh, if I walk 5 steps and you reward me, right? Yeah. If every 5 steps you reward me with my ball, which is like my fucking favorite thing in the world, I'm just gunning for that thing the whole time, and I'm just like, when is that ball coming? Right? Yeah. That's what leaking really is in that scenario.
Yeah.
So what you do is you say, cool, the second you whine, I give you your no reward marker, and now you must go do something else. Like, for example, you can then throw food on the floor, make them go eat the food. You take them away from the healing, which is something they like, because the healing is what's going to get them their ball. So now you send them to go eat food. They cannot come back into the heel until they have eaten all the food from the floor. And if you do that long enough, and if you're really keen on marking it like correctly, like your timing has to be fucking baller, so that like the second the dog starts whining, you mark it, you go, no, go eat food elsewhere. You're technically, 1, negatively punishing it, and 2, positively punishing it, because now food in this case is not something the dog wants, but you added it into the equation. So you're doing both. And you're also taking the dog out of the picture. Right, so the healing is the fun thing, and you're like, no healing, go eat food.
Is the point of the food in that context that when a dog is that jacked up for a ball, their ball drive is way higher than their food drive. They're not interested in eating food, so you're basically using it as your barometer to see when the dog settles enough to be willing to eat the food?
I guess it's a good side effect of it. I don't think that's necessarily what people are aiming for. Generally speaking, it's more of like I know you don't want to do this because you're really keen and fixated on the ball, and that's why you're leaking. But because that's what you want, you're losing your shit. And I can't, like, there's no way I'm punishing you.
For sure.
Because in that case, like, the dog is healing perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? He's very likely the dog is perfectly positioned, doing everything he needs to do. But the leaking is the thing I need to address.
Yeah.
And so I need a clear marker to tell the dog, that's not it. Leave this, which is already aversive in that sense, right? It's like the dog wants to be healing. You're like, no healing. Go do this, which is a lesser value reward.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're omitting also the ball, which is also, again, negative punishment.
Yeah.
And if you're good at timing, it's for me, it seems like a really good non-aversive or outwardly aversive, right? No tools required way of punishing whining or leaking in focus healing.
I've always looked at the leak. Like there's obviously a big spectrum of how bad dogs will leak. Like I remember when I was a member at West Bend Mondio, there was this one dog. It was an Ellis dog. It was a Loups du Soleil dog. And this dog was a fucking G, man. He went to like Worlds and stuff. He was awesome. But this dog was the noisiest dog on the field ever, right? His leaking was like, it wasn't barking, right? It wasn't even really like whining. It was such a loud hyperventilation, like while he was working, that you could hear it from wherever you're at, right? It was absurd. It was the most annoying thing in the world. But the dog was great. He performed awesome. He went to Worlds. You know what I mean? They don't judge for that in Mondio Ring, obviously. But there's a spectrum from that, right, to just the like, right, the super, super fucking subtle leak that is almost like just like this breath noise that they're making. And I've always, my thing with it, I've always struggled with is like, how much of it is a conscious thing the dog is doing, and how much of it can we, the subconsciousness of it, right? How much of that can we ever even make the dog aware of in order to successfully like utilize traditional learning theory like negative punishment or positive punishment or whatever in order to stop it, versus we have to solve it at its root issue, which is just somehow figure out a way to make the healing still fun, but not as exciting where they're doing it in the first place. You know what I mean?
I mean, you're always fighting Pavlov on that one, especially with focus healing. Yeah. Like there's so many issues with Pavlov in focus healing that you're going to run into, and the whining and leaking is one of them, right? Yeah. So you're kind of like in between a rock and a hard place, where it's like, well, I've created this perfect position, but I'm also always rewarding it this way. Now the dog is goal and sign tracking on the fact that I'm going to reward it this way. So he forges 2 centimeters forward. I can't correct that anymore. I have to go back to my basics, fix my markers, have a secondary marker so that the dog can back up first and then go around me, get the reward on the right, like all this stuff, right? Like you have to end up making so many like counter systems to combat your one issue in focus healing. Or even like I still struggle with this. I did a lot of engagement with my bitch when she was younger, and like my focus heal is never going to be straight because I did so much fucking engagement of the dog doing this that it's like she's looking for my eyes. No matter how much I do like proper position, lure fading and targeting and this and that, like there's a default thing where it's like, I'm going to look for your eyes. And I'm done. I'm not going to be able to fix that probably.
That's a bummer, man. I remember back when I used to train focus healing and was involved in the sports stuff, man, there's nothing cooler than the straight head, you know? Nobody wanted the head turned in. Just give me that straight head. Straight up and
dude,
back,
but like
dude.
not even, what is it, like 25, 30 years ago, it was, the exercise was just you looking at your dog. And the dog looking at you, right? So now we're just like, oh, the more vertical or even like dogs facing all the way back.
It's like we used to joke that it was like the breakneck healing because it like literally looked like their neck was like snapped backwards. Like it was so far back. I used to think that was the coolest thing in the world. Okay, so I want to touch on the dog you were working with one more time because I'm still curious about that before, and then we can obviously move on to something else. So okay, I guess where I'm struggling with the queuing up the individual things, like I understand the idea of making everything super predictable, but if you're training a traditional walking expectation, right? Shouldn't it still be just a consistently predictable expectation that you're providing for the dog? Like, why do you, what is the benefit of the additional cues at that point?
In this specific case, I would have thought that normal criteria, how we always have done it, would work.
Yeah.
Right? And it started to move the needle. Sure, we got rid of the pulling.
Yeah.
But I still didn't see what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. What else can I explore here? And it really finally I came to the conclusion. No, it's like the dog is thinking about way too many things in that moment.
Yeah.
Not about walking next to his owner. Right. And so if I can positively interface with him, right? So that cue has a potential for reward and has the potential for negative reinforcement, right? And technically, if you wanted to, you could then also add positive punishment on the back end if he doesn't comply, right?
Sure.
Especially now that he knows what we're asking. It's just, for me, it's mainly like, how clear can we be with this nervy dog until we finally reach the max clarity in his head?
Yeah.
So that we can eventually say, okay, no, bro, it's you, the dog, that's doing it wrong, right? I'm always sort of like trying to find that balance, because I remember a long time ago I had a discussion with a trainer friend of mine. He's like, he put his dog in this new scenario that was similar to other scenarios he'd done before, and the dog wasn't doing it right. And I was like, he kept on complaining like, a fucking dog should know. And I'm like, bro, where's your notebook where it says all the, like, every single rep with this much food, with this much that, like all your register of information, so that you can argue that the dog knows.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously he came back with like, no, I don't have a notebook. I'm like, well, there you go. Right. How do you know that the dog knows?
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Okay. So I guess the way I'm thinking about it, that makes it make sense a little bit to me, is like, let's say I'm working with a super fucking jacked up dog, right? Super tuned out, right? Wants to do all sorts of other things, this and that. And let's say I wanted to do a 30-minute training session with them. If I were to put them in a downstay and have them hold that downstay for 30 minutes, because their brain is going 400 miles a minute, doing that single duration exercise is probably going to cause them to get super impatient, super leaky, super vocal, right? Like they're going to be just like struggling with this, like, what's next? I'm ready to go, right? But if I were to take that 30-minute training session and work 100 commands in 30 minutes, right? Because of the constant change, right? And the constant, I need to pay attention for the next thing. I need to pay attention for the next thing. I need to pay attention for the next thing. I'm probably going to get a much more silent dog because they're needing to focus. So like, I'm not giving them the space to be able to zone out then at that point. So I guess what you're doing sounds kind of similar to that. You're just making all of these micro commands basically basically you're taking one command and you're intentionally dissecting it into like 10 different commands to get that same effect is kind of the way that I'm interpreting this now now.
And then you bridge them all together. It's like saying good when you've taught your dog to down and wait for your reward marker. At some point you have to add in good as a duration where you're going to say, okay, I'm going to feed you here, stay there until you hear yes, right? Or the clicker or whatever. So it's kind of a similar thing where it's like, cool, no, the walking exercise is a duration exercise, but your brain is going at 3,000 kilometers an hour. So I need contingent cues for you to participate in this duration exercise without losing your mind, right?
Yes. Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense to me, because I guess where I was getting hung up on was initial, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but initially I was under the assumption that you were doing it because he was getting stressed because he couldn't predict what was going to happen next. But in actuality, it seems like he can predict what's going on in the moment, but just the fact that it's such a drawn out, boring thing is causing him to just be so fucking all over the place that having more things he needs to pay attention to, which actually would create less predictability in my opinion, right? Causes him to focus more and not zone out and get himself into such a fucking tizzy in the first place.
So I'll pull out a caveat on something you just said there. I'll paraphrase, but basically we started classical, so to speak, whereby cue whatever word it is, let's walk together. I'm going to make a roundabout turn to see if the dog wins or fails.
Sure.
Right? Or the dog is like, you can see he's not really there, right? And that's where you would say, no, come, right? You would turn around, pop him on the leash, no, come.
Sure.
With this dog, if you do that, he blows up even more.
Sure.
Right? Because now he's like, well, fuck, am I too far forward? Am I too far back? Will I get corrected again? I don't like, can I sniff? Can I not sniff? Like it really is the type of dog where genetics are not playing in our favor. And so it is sort of like I'm creating a cue with sufficient time before the event that is important for this dog, right? So I'm not cueing and then moving immediately. I'm doing it almost like, again, it's a fading process, right? So sometimes there was moments where it's like, okay, I'm telling you the cue for what's going to happen in the next 2 steps.
Yeah.
And I started seeing that we're moving the needle because the dog says, oh, that word, this body language, that movement. Mm-hmm. And so I could see the dog saying, oh, cool, I know what's coming. And now, again, we're fading that whole thing out. Now we don't have to say really anything. Now our thing is just let's go. And my let's go is your come. And so we just say, let's go. And the dog is like almost basically contact healing the guy. Yeah. Actually, when we like the last session we had, I was like, oh fuck, like we kind of created this like indirect contact heel thing. Like the dog is just rubbing up against him the whole time. Mm-hmm. And again, that was never my criteria. I didn't teach him to contact heel.
Yeah.
But he's walking very like stuck to this guy's leg because we did all this process, right? Mm-hmm. Again, this only is something I would apply for a dog like this.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I've definitely seen that before where like in the early, like if you take a dog out like day 1, day 2, and like, because there's plenty of dogs I'll take out leash and prong first day and kind of teach the leash walking that way. And there are some dogs that like when you do that 180 with a leash pop, their brain goes to like full spaz because like they're not clear enough and they're not clear headed enough to be able to like really have a concrete enough like dot connection of the negative reinforcement event, you know? And with some of those dogs, like, if you just for the first session kind of help them out a little bit, and like whether you use like encouragement, or sometimes you'll see people do like a repeated come command where on those 180s, they'll just cue them up with come again then at that point, because it's giving a more clear direction as opposed to like a don't do this, that can help them be a bit more successful initially and then make them retain those consequences better than when you go to add them back in. So I think I've connected the dots on what
the big picture thing there is, at least in terms of the framework we were talking about from the kinology guys, it's like predictability and control.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I have a spaz dog, yet no real amount of corrections will make this dog settle into a nice loose leash walk. Like, sure, At some point, I'll reach a shutdown dog who is just there because he doesn't know what else to do, but I still have the fucking leaking in the background. You know what I mean? Which is not something I want to deal with, right? I don't want to see a dog super shut down because it's like, bro, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can, like, and you can see that he doesn't understand it, right? And all that's really coming out of it is the dog looks at you like, are you gonna fuck me up again or what? And with depending on the dog, again, very big caveat on that. Depending on the dog, some methods like this, what we're just talking about now, moves the needle better than a traditional approach to it. Simply because the dog can predict and control outcomes much better than if I just say, well, this works for most dogs.
Yeah, sure.
Right? At the end of the day, it's the same. Predictability and control is also why we have markers. It's also why you don't do, for example, sit and leash pressure together.
Yep.
Right? You say sit, then leash pressure if needed. Yeah. Right?
No,
because sit is your predictability and control.
You're supposed to do leash pressure, then sit. Just joking. Just joking.
Right. So if you look at the teaching methods of negative reinforcement, at some point, and this is Michael would argue that this is like one of the best ways to do it is you teach the sit first with positive reinforcement. You get rid of all the lure fading, so the dog knows how to do it on verbal only.
Sure.
Then you add the most minimal amount of leash pressure possible to the point where the dog says, "Oh, what's this?" And now your solution to that leash pressure is sit. And then at some point you reverse it. So now sit is the avoidance cue for the negative reinforcement that's going to occur, right? But you don't do both together because what happens then is you're reliant on doing it together.
Is Michael still doing a lot of the, like, I was half joking when I said the leash pressure first, then sit. Like, I know, like, the traditional way of, like, conditioning in your aversives, if you will, was apply minimal aversive, obviously, give the dog a signal to then turn it off. Apply minimal aversive, give them a signal to turn it off. But isn't that a lot of kind of the debate currently going on of, like, is that step necessary? Or once your sit is trained, why wouldn't you just use your negative reinforcement to whatever capacity, just as your enforcement of the cue then at that point, right? Like, is that still something?
Say that again. So what would be the new example of that?
So instead of, so I look at the applying aversive first, giving the signal to shut it off as the historic conditioning process, right? You're conditioning your aversive in, right? You're conditioning your e-collar, you're conditioning your prong collar, whatever it may be. But a lot of the debate right now, I thought, was like that idea that would be backwards conditioning, correct? Right? Okay. Yeah. So
technically, yeah.
Forward conditioning, cue comes first, negative reinforcement comes after, or obviously conditioning comes after. So I think that would be backwards conditioning, right? Is that the backwards conditioning is when people say, oh, we don't like low-level e-collar conditioning, we don't like e-collar conditioning, stuff like that. They're saying they don't like backwards conditioning. Backwards conditioning is like an unnecessary step. You can just forward condition with your negative reinforcement. Right.
So let's do this. So for example, I spent 2 years roughly with my female, just making sure leash mechanics are like intact, or impeccable. Sorry, right?
Yeah.
My e-collar conditioning phase with her was so brief. Like I just sent her to a food bowl. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm using a Martin system, by the way. So if I say 1, 2, 3, it's like whatever from 15 to 20 on a e-collar, e-collar technologies or a dog char or something. And so I just sent her to food. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I just went out on a walk, put her in the center heel, something she knows really well. She forged. I stopped. Nick at 4, and she's like, "Oh, that's the same as on the prong collar." Dunzo. Right? Because there's so much negative reinforcement history there. She knows, like, this tap, even though it's a new sensation, or sure, like she had been conditioned. She just really quickly associated it to that's this same. Yeah. Right. Where you might want to spend more time is with a novel dog or a novice dog rather, where they don't have that much learning history. They don't have that much history turning off negative reinforcement proactively, so to speak, right? And so you will have to show them, like with guardrails, this is what this pressure does this is how this pressure stops, right? So that's that backwards conditioning thing. Like the forward thing works much easier if your dog is fully trained already. You know what I mean? It's just a new sensation in terms of stimulation, so to speak. The thing I think a lot of people are criticizing at the moment, we can get into that as well, is, well, if like, why is everyone staying on low stim all the time and then just using that? That's something we were talking about at the beginning, right? It's like the what was the phrase again? The one you liked?
I don't know.
The I can't remember it either.
Highly functional pet dog, sport dog.
Multifunctional pet sport pet thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that dog, if you want to have a super nice focus heel, you're nicking. You're nicking like a motherfucker. Have you seen how people are doing focus healing these days?
Yeah.
It's like, foot lure, prong collar upwards, and then that becomes conditioned to be your reward marker, so that if I then have to nick you for not looking, you take it as a positive reinforcer. And so you're nicking a lot more than you would if you had just stopped at some point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the debate is. It's like, okay, cool, we can tickle the dog into action all the time. But isn't that technically overusing the thing? If our classical definition was that a finished dog doesn't need tools, then why are we staying on the tickling thing?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's where the debate's at.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking.
Yeah, I thought that there was some conversation on the forwards backwards conditioning too, as far as where to or the necessity of certain ones. And I will say also though, like, I'm not married to like one or the other, because like I have historically done both ways. Like I look at, like you mentioned, like you spent years doing just like leash training, right? Like we have a video on our YouTube channel of like me with Vinny, my Malinois, who we would like I was just showing like all the nonverbal leash communication, right? Just like how smooth they should, move on a prong collar, basically, to having a concrete enough understanding of it, right? So like I used to spend so much time in those stages, and we still spend quite a bit of time in that stage with our board and trains and stuff that are in. But I wasn't like that was independent. You know what I mean? I wasn't conditioning words, right? If anything, I looked at that was still forward conditioning of the cue, which is because I've always looked at like leash pressure independently. Like it is a cue and an aversive. You know what I mean? So like the way a lot of people let me try to, because when we have these conversations, I talk in ways that I don't generally talk. So hold on, bear with me. Bear with me for a minute. Okay, so
I'll write it down.
So leash pressure, right? When we do leash pressure, generally the way that I do it, right, and I would assume you kind of do this as well, is we start with super minimal pressure, right? I try to kind of be as light as I can with it. Let's say I'm doing a sit, right? Up pressure, right? Super light, right? And then I joke, I don't know if we, any musicians here, but like I crescendo into the pressure. Right?
Nice one.
So I gradually increase until it hits a point where it's motivating enough, right? And then they get into position, right? But every time I do it, I'm starting with that minimal amount and crescendoing into it until they feel the direction and they know how to avoid the aversive, right? By putting themselves into the position then at that point, which is why when you see dogs like the video I made, or it sounds like your dog, you see them move with the leash pressure, and there's zero aversion. You know what I mean? It's like they just understand. It's signals, right? You're giving them signals then at that point, right? So that is the teaching them how to escape the pressure. But then once I go to actually add my cue in, I would always just use that to then forward condition the cue in at that point, right? So I guess the hard part with the e-collar is you can do the same process with an e-collar, I guess. You know what I mean? Like you can do it.
Technically, yeah.
There are a lot of trainers out there that will do like one of the I don't know if it's the best example of it, but like Jeff Gelman's program that he does, I think he has like NCS, CS, I think it's like no command stim is what he calls it, is like his conditioning phase where they're basically training the negative reinforcement with the e-collar, but they're not adding the actual verbal signal into it initially, right? So
I've done that too with like just luring and e-collar at the same time.
I've definitely done it too. I'm predominantly when I do it, I would do it. I've done it with a recall a lot, right? Where I'll go on a long line and then like start pairing taps with moving in my direction, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I felt like I've watched podcasts of Ivan's where he talks about a lack of necessity in backwards conditioning your cues with your negative reinforcement, right? Is that you could just kind of utilize that negative reinforcement on the back end. And if there isn't a clear enough understanding in it, like after a handful of repetitions of them realizing that the shutoff point is whatever it is you're working on, it will achieve the same thing. And you will already be 10 steps ahead of the game because you've been actively forward conditioning in your cue then at that point. You don't have to like reverse it then at that point. But I guess you're also talking the difference between like a command that is already trained versus a command that you're training too, you know?
I think generally speaking, the Larry Crohn's, in this case, like I can't speak for Michael, obviously, or Hilliard or Forrest, but I think they all follow the principle of let's make sure we know the dog knows.
Yeah.
Right? Of okay, I've taught this with positive first. I know the dog knows exactly how I'm going to ask it to move. Now I present the negative reinforcement stimulus and I teach the dog exactly how to turn it off. I am in full control and I know that the dog is also, again, predictability and control, the agency that's in there within the dog side, where you have no doubt in your mind that the dog knows what's up, right? And only then do you move into forward conditioning, or if you want to call it more traditional consequence-based, so to speak, right? I think it's just on the side of let's not take any chances.
Yeah. So with the expectation, actually, I think I'm remembering a little bit more what some of the debate is with it. So let's say we're using the e-collar in that backwards conditioning phase at a whatever, an aversive, but you know, or not super aversive level, right? We're kind of doing the conditioning, right? Would the expectation be when we're doing that before we move on that I should start to see that the dog listens to the e-collar pressure before I say the cue? Is that the expectation that trainers that utilize a backwards conditioning method to teach the stimulation, right? Or to teach the negative reinforcement, would that be the expectation? And if it's not the expectation, that's where I think they say like, well, then what did that do to prepare the dog for when you go to do it? Because you never verified that the dog, because you could stim all you want and the dog listens to sit, but how do you know that they're not just listening to sit and that they're actually understanding the stimulation? Do you get what I'm saying?
Ideally, you are not letting the dog fully off leash in this process yet. Assuming this is a new dog, right? Or a dog we're developing.
Sure, yeah.
You're not just like, oh, okay, he knows how to sit on verbal and like, let's just take all the leashes off and like, let's pair it with the e-collar.
Yeah.
Right? So you're still using leash in case you need to help the dog. So there's like a ton of overlapping stimuli working in your favor.
Yes.
And again, it's a fading process that you need to go through in order to achieve the opposite at some point.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of want to go through all of them at some point where it's like, okay, he knows how to sit on verbal. He knows how to sit on leash pressure. He knows how to sit with neither, et cetera, et cetera. You fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah. Which I totally agree with, right? Like, obviously, I want to make sure I can food lure my dog into a sit. I can give a verbal command to get them into a sit. I could leash pressure them into a sit, right? They understand the e-collar to get into the sit. I think my question was, though, when we're doing the backwards conditioning, I guess where I get hung up with that is the implementation of the cue in that process, right? It feels like if we want to verify the dog just knows e-collar to get into sit, why give the verbal cue, right? Why not just like, or actually
leash pressure,
you could
right?
use it. Yeah, you could use leash pressure or the verbal cue, but the end goal with that, we wouldn't move on from that stage until I could just, without saying anything, and they sit down, right? And they sit down, right? Like it feels like that would be the necessary end goal if we're going to be following that kind of protocol, right?
I think there's a flipping moment where you decide, at least this is what I think for myself, where I'm like, okay, we got to a sufficient, I can see the dog feels it.
Yeah.
Right. I can see he's actively trying to turn it off. Right. And there's enough repetition in what we're doing whereby he's able to predict what's coming. And then I'll just flip it then and there.
Yeah.
Right. And I might not even pair it afterwards. You know what I mean? Like I'll just say, let's say we're using the sit thing. It's just sit and then nothing comes afterwards. And then I move on to normal scenarios where I'm looking for the dog maybe saying, I don't want to sit right now.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, remember this thing? It can also go a little bit higher. And then they're like, oh yeah, true. I know how to turn this off. I sit. Right. And he already heard sit in this case anyway. And I'm like, okay, cool. Remember this. Right. And it doesn't have to be necessarily extremely aversive, but it's definitely higher level than when we started the backwards conditioning.
So it has to be aversive enough, right? It doesn't have to be.
It's more aversive, yeah. I think there's definitely an art to that, right? Like, and I guess to Ivan's point, I don't think he needs to backwards condition anything. His dogs fucking understand him anyway, right? I think the big thing with that, and I still want to watch that podcast again, the one with Larry. The big takeaway there too still is Larry does pets. Ivan also has done pets, but Ivan mostly does sport dogs.
I agree with that.
And so
I felt there was nothing to take away from that podcast. I don't know if you actually did you watch it? That was
I've watched it like 7 times. Dude.
That was the most circular, never-ending conversation that I ever watched in my life. I actually felt like I wasted 3 hours of my time when I watched that episode.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
3
No,
hours.
I still like wow. Yeah, it's a long one too.
Yeah.
I always want to go back to it because I'm always like, there's stuff in there because, and all credit to Ivan because he speaks in a very specific way. And I feel like sometimes, like, this effect where, and I've heard Michael talk about this, where like information, you can only register information once you have somewhere to apply it to.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, you can learn everything about dog training today if you're a novice.
Yeah.
But up until you haven't done something, you won't be able to place it anywhere, right? And so I'm always going back to that podcast to check if I finally understood Ivan deeper.
Yeah.
Right? Or if I understood Larry deeper, for that matter, too. So I'm always sort of like curious, is there something I'm missing? Because I think, obviously, they know each other behind the scenes.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So I'm always curious, like if there isn't something there that I'm not quite grasping, and that's why it sounds so circular to me. But I think they both have really good points.
Yeah.
And I'd urge you to watch the recent one with the Bow Wow Bill. It was also very Ivan.
I think the reason why I've never really watched a whole lot of his is he always does them on Facebook Live. So I'm a Spotify guy, so it might be on Spotify. I'm not sure, but like I've only ever see him stream his on Facebook Live, and I can never go back and find it. And the way Facebook is, I can't play the videos like in the background on my phone and stuff. So
was this Larry?
The Bow Wow Bill ones.
Ah, gotcha. No, he's posting them on YouTube now.
Is he? Yeah. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
But the thing that killed me though, I remember after that podcast, like the crux of the debate that they couldn't get past was that low conditioning, backwards conditioning process that Larry was preaching doing, and that I got his freaking book over here that he talks about in his book doing, obviously. Is he was basically saying it was an essential part of his program to make sure the dogs understood the stimulation and prepared them for later on once I need to use the e-collar at a higher level, right?
Correct.
And he was getting grilled by Ivan on, and this is where the circularity of it kind of came into play of like, what does it do to prepare the dog, right? Like if the sensation is just a tick, because he kept asking, he's like, is it a tickle? Is it a of a mild aversion? Is it an annoyance? Is it I'm in pain? Right? Like, and there was just like no, like it just kind of kept coming back to Larry was like, I don't know why it works. I just see that it works, right? and which whatever, you know, like there's definitely things that all of us do that like in the end of the day, we probably can boil down to, I don't necessarily, like I like to think I know why I do most things I do, but I'm sure there's things that I do that I don't know exactly why I do it, right? But the thing that killed me was after that podcast episode, it felt like Larry really backpedaled a lot in further videos on talking about how, oh, well, like people think I'm doing that for sessions and sessions and sessions, but I only do one session and like maybe 10 reps of it before I move on to doing it the other way, which kind of felt like it further was like, then why the fuck are you even doing it? And also you wrote an entire book where you said this is like a whole phase you go through in your training process with the dogs and stuff. Like it felt like he severely backpedaled on that whole kind of backwards conditioning side of things. And that's, I think that also is another thing that made me really kind of question a lot of the, like, why are we doing it that way? Is it really preparing them that much more for it? Like, you know, again, like looking at like things that I do, like I definitely used to do it that way. Right. But like I haven't backwards conditioned with the e-collar in, I don't really know how long. Like I said, any conditioning I've done with the e-collar, I'm not adding a verbal command in, right? It would be something, like I said, on the leash where I'm just teaching negative reinforcement or using negative reinforcement to shape a behavior. I do struggle with the, like, I can't see a concrete reason why that is that necessary of a step and why you wouldn't be able to. I don't know. I'm getting
for me, if I have to boil it down, and I think they both have really important points. If I have to boil it down to one key thing, is again that thing of, do I know that the dog knows? Right. So it's really, you could almost argue it's for us. It's not even for the dog. It's just so I can see the dog knows how to shut it off. And then it's up to each practitioner to decide when you flip it, right?
So that, though, in order to see that they know how to shut it off, that would mean, back to what I was getting at before, the end goal before we flip it would be I have to start seeing the dog responds to the pressure, not to the command. Because if they're always only ever responding to the command, do they know how to shut off the pressure, or do they know how to respond to a command? You know what I mean?
I mean, it gets messy, right? Because like what's going to be overlapping? Something's always going to be overlapping.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Like it's either going to be leash before e-collar. Like there's always, and e-collars lag too. There's always a millisecond of delay on each e-collar system.
Yeah.
And so you never really know what came first. So whether it's the leash or the e-collar, what triggered what thing first, right? At some point, you just kind of have to dive into the pool and say, okay, let's test it now.
Yeah.
Right. Ideally, you don't do that so blindly that you get all these negative side effects whereby the dog really doesn't understand and then negatively associates stuff. Right. That's, I guess that's really what, obviously I can't speak for Larry, but I guess that's what he's against. Right. This is what I'm dealing with one of the dogs I mentioned earlier. Like they just went straight into e-collar equals like, listen to us, basically. And dude, this dog, like, it's one of Skinner's failed experiments, for example, was that he punished, I think it was with rats. He did electric shock on them first, and then he tried to do electric shock as negative reinforcement on them, and it didn't work because the punishment event was much more important in significance to those rats than a motivator, so to speak. Yeah. You can't do both, right? So if you use the e-collar super aversively first, like you're going to have to reintegrate that later so that the dog understands it differently, right? So I guess big picture, like let's try and positivize the tool first as much as we want to, as much as we think we need to, so that we don't have problems later down the line, right? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Like one of the things I learned this year is there's a whole protocol for sports dogs where all the negative reinforcement you apply is opposition reflex based. So you do all the luring with opposition reflex on a flat collar first, choke chain second, or a slip leash, whatever. And then you do prong, and then you do e-collar, right? To the point where you finish that negative reinforcement event and you end it on a positive reinforcer, right? And if you do this long enough in a dog's career, the thing gets classically conditioned. So you make this super crazy chain of events thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if, and again, and this is where stuff gets interesting. And I thought that was an interesting perspective that Hilliard offered in one of his seminars recently, is like someone mentioned, ooh, it seems as though they find the negative reinforcement pleasurable. And he says, purely from a behavioral standpoint or from a neuroscience perspective, like you can't say that.
Yeah.
You can't really say they find it pleasurable. What you can say, though, is that it becomes appetitive in a chain.
Yeah.
Right? Just like it would be, just like the healing thing. Like I do this, I get that ball, right? And so if it becomes chained in, now you can just use negative reinforcement or e-collar stimulation as it's almost like a clicker.
Yeah. It's like
but
a part of...
This takes long, right? It takes a long time.
And that's kind of why I think, like, you know, Ivan uses the example all the time of, you know, utilizing negative reinforcement within games, like with humans, like when you're playing sports and penalties that are involved in sports, or the hot hands game he loves to talk about all the time and stuff, is because within the whole chain of the game, right, that is just a part of the game, and the game as a whole is fun, so it is appetitive in the chain of the game, right? But independently, it's still a consequence. It still does temporarily in that moment, right, achieve its purpose. So, okay, one more thing on just the forward backwards conditioning. So I because I keep thinking about this, I'm trying to, like, you know, find some clarity for myself here more than anything. So, okay, so I always look at like I always create like you were saying, everything overshadows, everything's being conditioned in, whatever, right? I always look at, like, I have 4 main ways that I want to make sure that I can get a dog to listen, and I stack them in order of what's the most important for me, right? So, like, I look at that sequence of, I want my dog first and foremost to listen to a command, right? Just the verbal command, right? The cue, right? Secondarily, I want my e-collar to be this. That's the second most important thing that my dog listens to, because if that's, you know, in the big picture, when they're off leash, this and that, the e-collar is what I'm going to be depending on in order to get the dog to perform the behavior if needed. Third most important would be the leash, right? And my leash communication here, because obviously, you know, the leash is a very manual way of being able to still make sure that a dog can get it to happen. But, like, they're not always going to be on a leash, so it's not the most ideal. And then the fourth one is like food lures, right? That I still kind of look at to some extent. Like, if I'm needing to take a piece of food out and lure you into a position, it's great that I can get it to happen. But if I'm needing to use that as my way of enforcing a command, either I did a shit job of training it in the first place, or I'm needing to bribe you, right? So basically, yes, I want to make sure all of these things are independently taught, right? I guess here's my problem with the backwards conditioning, right? At least with backwards conditioning with the command itself specifically, right? Is are we backwards conditioning our cue, or are we forward conditioning the independent pieces, right? So if I'm looking at this, my order, my sequence that I would want to go through is, food is the most basic one. I'm going to train I'm going to obviously make sure the dog understands my luring, right? Following the lures into position, right? Once that's done, I'm going to forward condition, right, the negative reinforcement with the leash pressure, right? Once that's done, I'm going to forward condition the e-collar pressure with the leash, right? Once that's done, I'm going to forward condition the command with the e-collar then at that point, right? So I guess maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, or like as a whole collectively we're looking at it wrong here from the standpoint of saying that, like, you know, doing the command, right? Like, if the command is the end goal, we have a dog listening to a command, why would we have trained that cue first before making sure that our ways to enforce that command? Like, if our end goal is we want to make sure the dog listens to the e-collar pressure when we give the commands, if we need to use it, isn't this a, like, why would we name it until we love it kind of thing? Why would we even train that cue in the first place if ultimately I want to make sure my negative reinforcement with my e-collar is super, super reliable? Wouldn't I train all of those pieces first, forward conditioning each one of them up to that main one, the command, as opposed to doing it like food, leash, command, e-collar? Do you get what I'm saying? Because like e-collar isn't, my goal is not that I can go out and, like, how many times, I don't know if you heard me talk about it on the podcast. I fucking hate when I see people post, look at me practicing silent recalls, just like tapping their e-collar and making dogs come back to them, right? Like, I'm like, just train the command. Like, we want our dog to listen to come. So, like, that's great that your dog listens to the e-collar in that context. But, like, the only reason why we should be doing that is to make sure that it's reliable for when we go to give our actual cue, which is the most important, absolute pinnacle one that we want, right? Does that make sense? What's your thoughts on that? Give me some thoughts on that.
Here's where stuff again, like I'll use Hilliard, his phrase that I love. It's like, for every practical solution you acquire one or more for every practical solution you acquire one or more practical problems, or technical problems, sorry. For every technical solution you acquire one or two more technical problems that you will have to deal with.
Okay.
Right? So say I am a hunter and I have my fucking huge Garmin GPS that I can see 5 dogs, tons of space, right? Each dog has its own color, and my remote also works at however long those distances work. There's no way my whistle's working there if they're that far. Like, I can't whistle. Like, they won't listen to it, right? So I do need to acquire that technical problem of, my dog's gonna have to rely on stim. And no verbal, or no whistle in this case, right?
Sure.
Will my dog start will I be able to use just stim for a sit? Probably not. With this dog we're talking about, right? For some hunting dog, I won't be able to, simply because that dog is so conditioned that just stim, no verbal or no sound, equals come back to me. Right. So if let's say if my hunting dog, the same dog, is breaking a sit 10 meters away from me, and I go, no, stim, if my no isn't paired correctly there with the stim, my dog will just come to me. Because there's so much learned history of just stim, come to me. Right. So that's what you're getting at is, no, there should be clarity. Right. But sometimes you need something. Sometimes you don't need the other thing. Sometimes, and I see this here in Barcelona, because again, like, e-collars here are not legal. And so a lot of people are trying to get away with very subtle use of the e-collar with no words. So that you can use it very subvertly. Right. I do it all the time. I'm in the metro. I'll put my e-collar way down low. I'll have my finger kick on, and someone has like a bag of food or something in the metro. My dog goes to sniff it. I just go, and she backs off. Didn't have to say no. Didn't have to say anything. They didn't even notice I did it. Right. So there the nonverbal is paired with what I would have done with the leash in that situation. So again, everything's overlapping all the time. You acquire technical problems every time you have a technical solution for something. It's just whether or not that technical problem is something you want to deal with, or if it's going to interfere with something you currently want to achieve. So for some people, like what's his name, Chris Alter, right? He doesn't want his dogs predicting anything, right? Because his thing is, I don't want to just hit the e-collar and my dog offers downs. And so he sprinkles it into everything. Same with Haz Ottman from Shield Canine. He says that she's like, this is my hot sauce. I sprinkle it on everything. Right? Because they want the verbal to override the stim, actually. If you think about it, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. I think it's always just it's a user thing. Right?
I understand the purpose of making sure the dog understands how to turn off negative reinforcement. I understand the purpose of making sure the dog learns how to turn off a very non-directional aversive like the e-collar. I can understand the purpose of applying e-collar first to make sure that I could get opportunities for the dog to feel the e-collar. Look at you with your water jug. Look at that.
Thank you. Thirsty boy.
Little carafe. That's a very European thing, is to have a carafe of water table side. I love it. I understand the purpose of that as well. Where I get lost with it is, unless we're making our end goal, that before we move on from that stage, whether you're using the command to teach them how to turn it off, or the leash how to turn it off, or the food how to turn it off, I can't see how, unless we're seeing them actively respond to the e-collar in that moment, that we could verify in our mind that we've done anything. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's not even the process
no, I
of
agree,
doing
I
it
agree.
that's the problem. It's just what we make our target end goal, I guess, is kind of where I get lost with it. But yeah, no, that's just my take. So I like I said, I don't see an issue with doing it, but that the end goal is where I get lost with that. So
I guess to close that off, it's like, well, at some point you're gonna have to dip your toes in the water and just test it.
yeah.
I'm guessing
see,
someone
you could see, right? Like you could
can see
do
it.
it until, like, at a certain point, if you did that process long enough of apply e-collar, give command, they turn off pressure. Apply e-collar, give command, they turn off pressure. At a certain point, if you're doing it correctly, you should see them respond to the e-collar first if you do enough repetitions of that. Assuming the level is at maybe not a detrimentally aversive level, but something that's motivating enough for them to want to turn off, right? You should see that. And if not, that's where you get to the Ivan debate of then it was just a meaningless sensation to them, right? And did it do anything to prepare you later on?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so for some people it is also supposed to be a meaningless sensation.
Yeah.
Like I see it more and more where it's like, oh, it's just, and then that wraps into our activation thing as well. It's like some people want the dog to be desensitized to it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a nuisance. Like the quicker I turn this off, the less it annoys me. And I still get my reward, right? So, and then that's what we're calling activation. It's just like the opposition reflex thing. The more I fight it, the more I win, right? And so some people want it to be meaningless, so to speak.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't
right?
I don't want to dwell on it too much. But what you even said a minute ago, it's just this annoying thing that the quicker I turn it off, the quicker I get my reward. If that's the case and the dog had the mentality of the quicker I turn it off, the quicker I get my reward, at a certain point the command would become meaningless in that sequence and they would respond just to the pressure first still, right? Which would still be that end goal I'm talking about. If you achieved your goal then, right? That would give me an absolute concrete, okay, now I could verify you know the e-collar. We could now move on to the next step. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's more subtlety that comes in later with these protocols because, like, for example, there is such a thing as a dopamine spike at the there is such a thing as a dopamine spike at the avoidance level of a negative reinforcer or an aversive, whereby, for example, you can promote something happening. So, for example, let's say you have a dog that pulls you to a tree, and every time it pulls you to the tree, it gets to the tree.
Yeah.
At some point, just because of happenstance, that day you were walking too close to the tree and the dog went to the tree. He never activated the leash. He thinks I escaped that. Right? Obviously, I can't be in the dog's head, but there is something to be said there where he can think he turned off the pressure before it ever had to even start. Therefore, I win.
Sure, because they got
so
to
in
it
some
fast
protocols
enough that they
right. But how does the dog know that you were?
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing
right?
with you. Yeah.
And so in some protocols, it's like, okay, cool, we'll do it variably, whereby sometimes I do nick onward or slightly behind word, and sometimes there's nothing happening there on purpose, right? Again, everything has its pros and cons. I don't know. Yeah. The big thing for me, to close on that is make sure you are not creating superstitious associations.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the only big one for me. It's like, but even then, like, if you're constantly having to nick your dog for reactivity, don't expect them to also like dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, like, it's for me, it's normal. Like, it's just class. It's going to become Pavlovian at some point. It's like, oh, see, dog, nick. Oh, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, let's make sure we're using the tool in a way that's not going to kick us in the ass later.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, obviously we can go in whatever direction you want after this, because there's a whole conversation to, like, well, how do we utilize the e-collar in a way where you don't, where you could still create your punishment and your boundaries for things. So even surrounding other dogs, even when working reactivity or socializing dogs or this or that, in a way that isn't going to create those superstitious associations, or you at least minimize the chances of it happening. Or if you do create a minor superstitious association, having it be something that very quickly will be clarified to the dog over some you know what I mean? Like that's a whole conversation that obviously got into. Like,
that one's so deep.
That one's super, super fucking deep. But I just like to, like make sure like you can't, like, cause there's a lot of, we hear it all the time, like where trainers will say, and what's funny is I always hear this from trainers that don't actually socialize dogs a whole lot. Right. There is this deep fear that trainers have of using an e-collar to correct a dog for anything, like when they're teaching their dog to interact with other dogs, right? Or when they're working on having dogs interacting or running socials or this or that. Like so many trainers take these hard stances on like, you can't use e-collars with your dog around other dogs, or you can't use your e-collar with your dog around people or this or that, right? Which I also just is just not true. I mean, like we socialize dogs every single day, and we're able to use e-collars to correct them for various behavioral issues in the social yard, and they're able to understand that those corrections aren't just coming from the dogs biting them. You know what I mean? And I think that's just a conversation of contingency, right? Like what are you correcting for, right? Specifically, does the dog actually connect the dots that correction is for the specific thing you're correcting for, and not just being in the presence of the other dog? And then, as you said, like there's a whole deep conversation about how to do that properly. But I just like to make sure like we're not like necessarily scaring people away from like using an e-collar with a reactive dog or in a social.
True.
So,
well, here's something to ponder on for our listeners who are also trainers. If you, and this is just a mind experiment, but I've seen it play out. If my no marker is always if the mechanical sequence that comes after that word is stop and freeze, for example. So say, for example, if my omission cue is no, and I close the gate on a dog, right? So he stops and freezes. I cannot then expect that word no to not equal that mechanical sequence afterwards.
Yeah. And when you say the mechanical sequence, do you mean the backing up because the gate's closing on them?
Either it's backing up or freezing, or so if I've been playing a game recently with it's a negative punishment game where and I think it's becoming quite more popular, this game. It's a fun one to work dogs who are highly aroused for a reinforcer. You put them on a table, on a platform, like it can be a bed, a bed cot or something. You release them from it into a specific position or through an obstacle or whatever. If they get it wrong, you mark no, omission cue, whatever it is, send them back to the table again. Right? Start over. They probably get it right this time, and now you add a new addition to that sequence. Right? What I started noticing the more I play this game is my dog picks up when she's wrong, and she just backs off and goes to the bed without me saying anything. Like sometimes she's just in the wrong mindset, and without me even making a sound, she's like, oops, bye, and goes right back to the bed. And so I realized like, if I did this in the wrong setting, it would, like, depending on what I'm looking for, my no might send my dog somewhere I don't want it to go. Right. So for example, if you only did that, like going back to the agility thing, if my no is go back to a place board, and I'm already 10 steps deep into go through the tunnel, go through this, and I just need to work that one final thing. Now I have to go all the way back to the board again. Does that make sense? So you're creating a segment there. So what I'm trying to get to is be mindful of the sequence, the mechanical sequence that comes with every single marker, whether it's your yes, your no, your like whatever, negative reinforcement marker, negative punishment marker, because that also then creates the behavior you might not want to see in response to something.
Yeah. So, okay. So this is an interesting one that I guess we could talk on for a little bit, because this is something I don't necessarily have Okay, here I'll just kind of go into. Okay, so markers, right? So like no, yes, good, whatever the fuck you want to use, right? You have your like historically you have your like bridge markers and you have your terminal markers, right? Obviously you understand the difference between those, right? Bridge marker, it's a continuation marker. Terminal marker terminates the sequence what we're working on, right? So I think it was Gary Wilkes that I first had heard, because he was the guy that really first was talking about like utilizing punishment markers, I feel like, right? And he's done a lot of, obviously he's been around for a while. He's got a bunch of blogs on it, stuff like that. He had said, I went to one of his seminars and we were talking about the use of markers and we were talking about no. And I think there were people that were asking similar questions of like, well, I tell my dog no, and instead of them laying down or instead of them coming to me or instead of doing this, they do the opposite thing, right? And he's like, no's a terminal marker. He said, no, when we say no and punish for something, he said, it ends what we were just doing. He said, so like, I don't care what the dog does after until I give them direction of what I want, until I restart the sequence then at that point, right? So I guess what I'm saying is like what wouldn't with that logic, right? Like there's no like when I had somebody ask this on a live we did last week, actually, ironically. They said on a recall, if I tell my dog no and punish for non-compliance of the recall, they take a couple of steps away from me, right, before they come back. And I said they're two individual sequences, right? They're two completely separate sequences. It's not like no and punishment should predict. It's not negative reinforcement, right? It's not like it should predict them coming to me in that moment. I've punished the act of non-compliance, and at that point there is zero expectation of what the dog should do in that moment aside from stop doing what they were doing until I re-give direction then at that point. So I guess I'm curious to hear either clarification of another take on it or a counter argument to that, or kind of your take on it, because obviously that's kind of what you're describing here.
I think long term, and obviously you don't want to train like this really, but say for example, let's say I teach like go onto a place board, right? And I proactively try to make my dog leave, right? And then I do like I'll go and then push into them. So spatial pressure, right, or body pressure, right?
Yep.
And they'll back up. And then I'm like, good, that's it. If I do that long enough, then predicts me going into them.
Sure.
And now I don't have to do it necessarily because I've created the mechanical sequence that predicts. And so now, if I then make the job of generalizing for, let's say, lifting front elbows off of the ground on a down, now it's generalized to two places.
Yeah.
Right? And so now it's not classically terminal anymore because the word just simply predicts go back into position. So if I'm contact healing, let's say, and my dog bounces and I just go, I don't have to necessarily drag them back with the leash after that or even repeat the command, because it's just a marker that says go back to what you were just doing.
Yeah.
Right? It has to be generalized, obviously. There's a lot of repetition there. And again, that might cause you problems. Like you shouldn't necessarily be aiming to always fix your dog so that you have a marker for fixing.
Yeah.
Like you have to be kind of a really good trainer to be on top of that all the time.
Yeah. So okay.
And it might cause you problems anyway, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. So I guess the what feels like the difference is the way you just described it. Your is predicting negative reinforcement, not punishment. Then at that point, right? Because your spatial pressure.
True, but you can go up. You can go up.
What do you mean go up?
As in, once that's a thing, once it's go back into behavior, right? I can go up, and I can even positively punish for leaving. And what I'm gonna see is more behavior. Technically speaking,
yeah.
You just raise it. You're just raising the criteria of how high that negative reinforcement event is. right? And it's that blurry line.
Yeah, between what's negative reinforcement, what's punishment, which I still will kind of stand behind. The intensity of it isn't really what like dictates. I know that was like a bit of a sticky point, obviously, but back to the point I was going to finish making here. So if hypothetically, negative reinforcement, we're using spatial pressure actively as negative reinforcement in that moment, right? Sure, later we could go punishment, this, that, right? You're signaling your negative reinforcement at that point with why not just use the command at that point, right? Since the spatial pressure is what the dog is trying to avoid anyways. That way, because like my thing is like with the whole no marker and like the dog should fix themselves when they hear the no marker is like it's one word. And though, yes, I do think after repetition in enough situations, they'll kind of understand the context of where they're hearing it, you know, and kind of know like, well, this is a recall picture, or this is a down picture, or this is this. It's still just one word. You know what I mean? So like we're really, really banking on the dog just being smart enough to connect the dots in every context and understand what in that moment that they should do, as opposed to we have individual commands for that, right? So, you know, and I know this is something we talked about maybe the second part or the second episode we did where it was like you had a chart or a graph or something to like the intensity of the word, how the word itself kind of swings on a spectrum. Like if we're taking that logic, it's not the end of the world to add just a little bit of hotness to that word by having negative reinforcement fall on the back end, and then you could fix it later as the dog is successful with it, and you add more positive reinforcement back into it, et cetera, right? So what's your take on that? Like, why wouldn't we just use the command for that and then keep our no marker, our true punishment marker, as just a terminal, right? It's just we're punishing noncompliance of something and there's no expectation post it. Obviously, the dog will still, in context, develop certain associations with it, but like what I'm getting at is like it doesn't matter to me, right?
Right. There's a video of Pat Stewart explaining this way better than I can ever do it. But he was sort of mentioning something similar to what you're saying now, where he's like, it's dangerous to, for example, the trainers, I'm one of them. Let's say we're training a dog to be neutral to stuff on the street. And so we put the dog in a down state. And like, the chances of them breaking because the thing is coming into their space and it's like almost so imminent, but they kind of hold it together, and I'm like, good, and I pay them for staying there, right?
Yeah.
Pat says that's super risky, right? Like, isn't it just better to say the word again and feed if you're also going to ask them to do it again anyway once they break, instead of waiting for them to break or not break? Like, you're teetering too much,
okay, so,
right?
Say that again. So the dog's in the down, ton of distractions going on. It looks like they're thinking about breaking, but they haven't done it. You tell them good.
And they don't.
You reinforce at that point, obviously. He's suggesting that's dangerous, and instead we should just say down and reward again.
For example. Not
is
dangerous in a safety sense, but dangerous in a
You could mess something
in a sense of
a cue up or something.
Like, because like you might be about to say good, and then the dog stands the fuck up, right? And you're like, ah, shit, here we go. Yeah. And now you're saying good, no, bad, no, go again, no, leash. Like it's messy, right? Is kind of what I'm trying to get to. He's more of a proponent of, or at least he sees the value in, why not just use the same word if you're probably going to have to use that word anyway when you put them back in it? And so at least it's not devaluing the word, because you're also using it as a good, right? So you're paying forward what you're going to have to subtract later, so to speak.
I'm curious. You should send me that video because I'm curious to see it. Because I'm not fully connecting the dots necessarily on that. I guess.
What part of it?
I don't know. I guess I'm not connecting the dots on the correlation between the two, right? Because in one case, we are actively sending the dog. The dog is not in position. We're sending them back into it, right? We're using a negative reinforcement to do it. In the other case, the dog hasn't broken command, right? We're trying to.
Well, this is assuming we're doing the classic like no down.
Yeah. So okay. But he's proactively, the dog hasn't made the mistake, and he's suggesting we should just use the command as the positive reinforcement marker.
Bingo.
Yeah. So what, I guess I don't, that one I don't get why in that case. If the dog hasn't made the mistake, right?
Yeah, because you're just doubling down on that's good.
Yeah.
So you are not teetering on the edge of chaos of like, oh, the dog's about to break and maybe he will, and now I'm saying good while I'm forcing him back into the down. For example, right? Like you're kind of like at the edge of your seat instead of like, if I just proactively say down equals payment at place.
Yeah.
And by the time I have to fix you, down isn't this super coercive word, so to speak. Right? So you're just paying it forward.
Yeah.
Other people might say, bro, your dog understands, like, why say down if your dog is already in a down?
Well, I mean, that depends on, in this context, I would agree with that, obviously. But I always thought, like, using the example of, like, we teach all our commands as implied stays, right? If my dog is laying down and I want them to do a down stay, I don't feel the need to get them up to put them back into a down. I could just start the sequence by telling them down in that moment, right? Because the expectation is kind of still the same at that point. I guess if I looked at what you just described, and again, unless I'm missing something, I'll watch the video, as two separate
I might also be explaining it incorrectly.
No,
sorry.
that's okay. If I'm understanding it as two separate pieces, right? Where like we're not necessarily training down to be a positive reinforcement signal, but we're just proactively saying down again in case the dog breaks in that moment so that we could get them back into position. And then the reward is, I mean, it's still positive reinforcement, whether it's signaled or not. You know what I mean?
It's just being proactive about like not making it, not infiltrating the word with the negative reinforcement event, so to speak.
Yeah. Right? I'll have to watch this video.
It's the same thing when like I've done this before, and for me it works wonders. If I have a reactive dog and we're contact healing, let's say, and I see the dog bubbling up, I'm not micromanaging him in the contact heal. I just go break, go do it, and then we'll address whatever we have to address in the break. And what starts happening is I say break, and they're like, no, I'll stay here.
Yeah.
Right? So it's almost like break in that moment just equals more contact heal.
Yeah.
Right? And I also don't see the negative effects anymore of them being reactive, because they know that if they were free, it's not going to work out for them anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Generally, you don't want to use obedience to override stuff like that anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I think we agree completely there, obviously. And also, like, I find, to your point, like, when it comes to most behavioral issues, right? If I could release my dog from position and then go address the actual problem wherever it is and then put them back in position, it just makes it 10 times easier for them to be successful because the urge to go do that thing has been suppressed, right? So
yeah. And so you might have a dog who's leaking because they're like, oh, maybe I can go react, but I'm in contact heal position. I shouldn't leave. And you're like, no, bro, you're free to do it, but you go find out what the consequences are.
100%. Yeah.
But that's still paying it. You're paying your command forward. You're not doing a disservice to. You're not going to say heal and then prong collar him so he stays in the heel.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It's the same. It's the same thing with what Pat Stewart is saying, where it's like, no. Let's pay it forward. Down's still going to be great. And if I ever need to negative reinforce you back into it, at least there's all this payment history behind it. Because I'm probably going to say no down anyway.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's
right.
and again, if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're suggesting is this is getting back to your idea of like just making sure the word is never getting too tarnished, right? In and of itself. Yeah. I could definitely get behind that.
Yeah.
So I got to watch the video because I feel like I'm still losing just a little bit of context of it, maybe. But I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I think that also ties back into our forward-backward conditioning thing. It's like if you're too quick to forward condition something, right?
Yeah, you can make the word. Yeah. I'm yes.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think everyone's just trying to play safety.
Yes, which I could completely agree with that. And I like I'd even mentioned, I don't even have an issue with stim first, command after. my whole thing is, again, not to draw back into it, but like just at that point, let's make sure, the stim is understood, right? Like, and the only way to verify that is making sure the dog is responding independently to the stim, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Yeah, no, I get that. I think that's a good, we can move on from that for sure. Okay. So, Josh, first off, I know we've been talking for a long time. Do you have like a thing you got to get to or something?
Not particularly.
Not that I want to keep you here like all day by any means, but I just want to make sure that you're not sitting there like, fuck, I really got to be at this thing in 20 minutes.
No, I mean.
Sorry, Josh. This is the second one where you're like, fuck, here we go again.
2 hours in right now.
Yeah. Okay, how about this? Can we set a hard cutoff of 2:30? Is that
that's fine? That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we got a hard cutoff at 2:30. We got 24 minutes here. So what do we want to talk about in these last 24 minutes?
He said 24 minutes. I don't know. That's going to be tough.
No, I think I'd rather ask you, like, if there's anything from the last two podcasts that need clarifying, that still could be better explained.
No, I think all these podcasts that we have done together amongst the two of us have been like I hope nobody that's listening to this gets the impression that, correct me if I'm wrong, unless you feel this way, that either of us is like, this is the way, and we're trying to like truly be like, no, I'm convincing you that this is the way. These conversations have really just kind of felt like we're challenging some of the ideas a little bit. And even like, that's why I always feel like when I've listened back to the last two that we've done, I've always kind of had this like, like we're just kind of pitching shit, right? Like we're pitching ideas. And like, though we have stronger or less strong opinions on some of those things, I am not like like I still feel the way that I feel about a lot of things, but like I'm not married to any of them, and it helps me like gain just different perspectives on stuff, right? So because of that, there's nothing that I'm like, oh gosh, I really want to clarify this, or I feel like I just didn't get my point clearly enough across on this, because like it's just been this is really, honestly, these episodes are less for the people and more for just like me. I think it's fun to talk about. And as I said earlier, like there's certain things I'm saying in these episodes. I was like, wow, I've never actually said that out loud. So I've never needed to like formulate how I really feel about that kind of thing. So no, not necessarily. I will say the one thing that you had said in your email the other day was you were talking about like the systemizing of the dog training. That one did pique my interest a little bit, mostly because I feel like I know you well enough to know, because now we've talked for like 8 hours in total or some shit. I know you well enough to know, I feel like that maybe that was sparked by some idea that, or something somewhere. So I'm just curious to hear what specifically about that, like what direction were you kind of hoping to go with that conversation?
Yeah. Well, first things first, important to mention that even though these conversations are great for us, I've gotten like, it made me feel quite nice. I've gotten a couple people from your end, people who follow you, come reach out to me saying like, bro, your conversations with David are fucking super cool to listen to. So it's been really gratifying in that sense.
I want to say that it may look like I'm glazed over, but like, it's very interesting. Like I said, the last time when you were like, oh, what is Josh thing? I'm like, I just like when you guys start going, it's just very interesting because it's like opening, like you said, stuff that we don't talk about because it's like very sciencey and into the weeds of what dog training is, and I think it is very interesting. It is definitely, if there's a trainer out there listening, like they're getting a lot, but like even for like me, someone like me listening to this, I'm like, wow, this is crazy stuff that even like stuff that I wouldn't even ever think about, like we were just talking about the little nuances that I'm like, oh, I never thought about things that way. Yeah. So it's good for everybody.
Great to hear, man.
What I'm trying to say.
If you're like next time you're out here in Europe, because I know they're going to do the IACP in Poland this year. We're talking like these conversations are normal with my friend group. Like there's a couple of friends and trainer friends of mine where we nerd out for 5 hours straight.
I would love. And
we're
that.
Like, so if you come to the IACP, let's hang out.
I feel like this was maybe after we had talked last time. But dude, I was just in fucking Spain end of last year.
True, I remember.
You saw that. I was up in Basque country. It was.
Did you catch any of the sport dog stuff that was going up there?
No, it was right before. before, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was right before I got up there. So yeah.
He was drinking wine. Come on,
Dude,
now.
I was Rioja country, hanging out at the wineries.
Yeah, hanging out at the beach. I like the pictures you were posting looked sick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he comes back and just shows me all. Oh, look at all this cool stuff I did. I was like, great.
Okay. Anyways, we got freaking 20
definitely
minutes.
extend the invitation if you come back. No, and let me finish that too. It's like, yeah, it's cool because we're not also here to just kiss each other's asses, which is also part of the thing I hate when I see podcasts lately in our industry. It's just like, oh, bro, you're cool. No, you're good. Like, you do things amazing. Like, oh, yeah. Like, there's too much yes manning out in our industry. So I'm glad we can also do some of the contrary here,
Makes me
but in a respectful, nice way, right?
Yeah.
Cool. The systematization thing was just spawned out of a conversation I was having with a friend the other day, where it's like, wouldn't it be much easier for a lot of, because I stopped someone on the street the other day with this dog who like long leash, but like super hectic, just like flying from one side to the other, tail tucked. And I'm like, yo, what's up with your dog? And they're like, oh, he's scared of everything. And I'm like, oof, like it's interesting that he's on a long leash. Obviously I'm not telling this to these people, but it's like, it kind of might, it's like too close to the street. Like, who are you working with? Someone, this and that and the other. And they're like, yeah, we have someone who's helping us from the shelter. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So you guys probably know what markers are and this and that. And they're like, huh? Markers?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, like, is like, for me, and that's what we were sort of talking with this friend of mine. It's like, even if that was like the first step for 85% of novice handlers, it would do so many favors.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't mind if we systematize it, where every dog training protocol must start with a reward marker.
Yeah.
A clear one at that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can systematize a lot of things is the thing. And I don't know if you're talking like systematically systemize it, like meaning like, oh, like we put, like getting back to the conversation of like legislation and stuff, like we put in place like, hey, there's these standards we have to meet and this and that. Or if you're just talking like, can you literally make a system that just applies to everybody? Like, can I do that? You could systematize all of the steps, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like training markers, right? Or teaching a down, right? Or this or that. Like, there might be 2 different systems you could follow, right? Or 3 different systems you could follow or something like that. But each tool that you have in your toolbox of this is a way to teach the down can be broken down in a systematic way. I think where you get into the problem is determining the individual dog's motivation level. Like, you could systemize everything with the contingency that like the dog is motivated to something, right? Or the dog is motivated to avoid something, or et cetera, et cetera. As far as your teaching of things, I think what you cannot systematize is, from a behavioral modification standpoint, the degree of management to solution that will be in play for every individual owner. You know what I mean? And I think that's the problem with something like dog training versus, the medical field, right? It's funny. I don't know if you guys watch. Have you been watching The Pit? Mm-hmm. You got HBO?
We do.
Do you watch The Pit?
But I haven't watched The Pit now.
Oh, dude, it's so good. It takes place like 2 hours from here in a hospital. And my wife works in an emergency room, so it's like basically like she's watching her job. It's a great show. Whatever. Anyways, in it, it's interesting because like, they get patients that come in and there's like oh my God, this one's got this problem or this problem or this problem. And like the doctors come in and they're just like, oh yeah, this issue, here's the here's the solution. Here's how we're going to treat this, right? And they know for every given situation that comes in, for the most part, obviously there's caveats, but we check these things, we put in place this protocol, the solution is created, right? There's no management involved in it. It's not like, oh, well, they need to make this because obviously medicine, bigger problem. Obviously, everything's focuses on, not preventative medicine, but what's the other one?
Emergency medicine?
I don't know, whatever. So instead of preventing issues, right, like we focus on just treating issues, right? So because of that, they solve the problems, right? Like they're not, obviously the treatment plan for stopping those things from happening in the first place, you can't systematize, but the solving of that problem, they can systematize. In dog training, we can't do that. I can't be like, you come to me with an aggressive dog, here's the protocol to solve your dog's aggression, right? You come to me with a reactive dog, here's the protocol to solve your dog's reactivity, right? There will always be management and actual long-term care and solutions that need to go into place for it. And it's just impossible to create a system for that. But our tools in our toolbox, we can create systems for. Is kind of like the first thing that popped in my head when I heard that.
So I've seen the shift now with a lot of the online courses that they're also selling mindset and problem solving.
Yeah.
Right. So even though there's a system behind something, it's like, no. Within our system, you will learn the problem solving mindset that you need for XYZ cases, right? Because they're aware that not because I copyright a system and I say it's Leandro's system, is it going to solve all dogs, right? The question then is like, what do we do with the infestation of 3 quick fixes for every reactivity case ever on Instagram?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what people are consuming as well. Or it's like, just shove food in the dog's face and it'll be fine. Or like, no, your dog, or the fucking thing I hate at the moment, it's like, for some reason now, reactivity, resource guarding, it's all stems from fear all of a sudden. Yeah. Like that's the only ever cause of everything is fear. And it's like, cool. We treat fear cases this way and we treat aggression cases this way and we treat something in the middle, not like there's different protocols for all kinds of the different types of reactivity. And also, what the fuck is reactivity really?
Yeah.
Right. I just saw recently. I can't remember her name now. It's a weird name. Anyway, is one of the leading experts in autism just retracted something because she was like, dude, we're like the whole idea of it being a spectrum. It's so wide now that it encompasses stuff that like it's too much. We can't manage it anymore. Yeah. And the same thing that's happening with autism is what happened with ADHD. Whereby now everyone's getting misdiagnosed. And really we should have just said, oh no, it's this is that. And now we made it so broad that everyone's falling into the same umbrella. Right? Yeah. So when you systematize things, you either sweep too wide or you leave people out. Right. And so that's a big problem with that whole thing.
Yeah. Can you? What do you think? Can you systematize dog train? Like, and to what degree? We would have to define, like, systematize what aspects of it. Like, can you systematize everything? Like, no. Like, same deal with the doctors on shows. Like, there is a degree of problem solving and troubleshooting that they have to be able to go through, obviously, with their patients, right? But for the most part, they are able to systematize all of the solutions that they would put in place for each of those problems, right? So same with dog training, right? Like I have all of my techniques that I could implement for various problems that I would be presented with. And all of those do, to some extent, have a system, but that's not the hard part of dog training. The hard part of dog training is the problem solving and figuring out what solution we need to put in place for the individual situation we're working with, right? So I guess yes and no. Like you can, but you can't. And even the stuff that you can, like that's the easy shit, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing we were talking about the other day with my friend. It's like you would think the easy shit would get taken care of, yet people fucking don't.
Yeah.
Like what do you like? That was the thing for me. Was like, what do you mean you have a dog trainer helping you with this fear case, but you don't know what a marker is?
Yeah.
Like it baffles my mind that you would pay someone to not learn like basics and I'm not saying the basics would resolve the fear case necessarily, but if we started there, if it was a prerequisite that everyone who acquires a dog decides or has to, for the first, let's say, month of that existence with that dog, create a reward marker and present it, like a lot of people would be better off. And then be like, okay, this is the use case scenario for a reward marker. This is when you do, when you don't use it, XYZ, right? Yeah. But the fact that a lot of people have dogs and still don't even know what that is baffles me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I there is nothing that I could disagree with that statement by any means. I think the problem is like many people can make their life 20 times easier and better with their dog without understanding clearly to be able to articulate what a marker is. You know what I mean? Like, in the end of the day, you give the dog a treat when they're doing what you want, and you give a correction when they're doing what you don't want. And again, I'm not saying that's the perfect way to do it by any means, but like for many dogs out there, that will be enough to get a lot of the way there. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, it's
so it's like,
I've seen it too with
but
sorry.
like from the high, you know what I mean? Like we work with a lot of clients that like, you know, if this is where they want to be and this is where they start, they can get here pretty easily. You know what I mean? Like they can get there without a whole lot of skill and knowledge. They can get here with like a very baseline level of knowledge, right? And like a little bit more caring and understanding than other people have. But to get here, that's where a lot of that precision really comes into place, right? But most people are just okay with being here. You know, like most people, they're fine with that. So
I think the differentiating factor, and I think this is something I agree with Nino a lot in his marketing strategy as well. He's like, oh, what you think is basic obedience isn't really that basic. Like he says, everyone wants just the dog to come when called, to behave in public, and it's like that's not as simple as you think it is.
Sure, yeah,
actually,
it is, but it isn't,
especially
you know, like it's. I agree, yeah.
But like even furthermore, when you're not allowed to use any punitive tools to coerce your dog into doing it in countries where you're not allowed to do that, right?
Like it's very challenging then. Yeah.
Very challenging. So if your level for entrance is just like, oh, love my dog to be off leash with no tools and to come back when called, it's like, bro, yeah, go to a French ring club and fucking learn how to like recall with a whistle off of a decoy. Like you need that level of sophistication, right? So that's what we do in ring sports. Like, bro, no, we're setting up scenarios where like your dog is like this far away from biting. We whistle off and the dog gets to bite something here and then go back and we would like whatever. You get the point. The level of sophistication to get such an intact, impressive recall with no tools is insane. Yeah. Right. But because people don't know better, that's their level of entry, and they're like, oh, this is normal. Yeah. Right.
And that is though, you know, I mean, I did monitoring also. So like I know the call offs and stuff like that. Like it's like, that's fucking, it's hard. It takes a lot of work.
It's hard as shit,
and
bro.
It takes a lot of shit. It takes a lot of maintenance too. This is like we were talking earlier about like, well, behavior is contingent on consistent reinforcement, right? You always need to maintain the positive reinforcement, the negative reinforcement, the positive punishment, the negative punishment. There are certain aspects of it that are easier to maintain than others, right? And like when you're looking at like a call off, right? Without the use of an e-collar, without the use of a prong collar, right? Maybe you could use an aversive in some other type of fucking way, obviously, but like the maintenance involved in that, past just teaching it, is so much fucking harder than if I could just put a goddamn e-collar on the dog and be able to correct for non-compliance of it. You know what I mean? So like, I mean, I don't envy that. You know what I mean? Like, and this is why I don't like the tool bands and stuff is like, yeah, I could fucking do it. Like I made a video that we posted on YouTube yesterday or the day before. I had like 2 of my dogs and a client's dog, that German Shepherd I was talking about, in a field off leash behind my house. And I don't know if you saw the clip. There's a clip going around of these 3 trainers. I can't remember what their names were. There were three black guys. Not that it matters, but there's the three trainers, obviously. And they were talking about like, it was a short, like 15-second clip. And they're like, you know, your dog isn't off leash trained if they have an e-collar on. Like they fucking, you know, like they're not off leash trained. They're collar trained and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, who fucking cares, bro? Like I've got 3 dogs off leash in the field, tearing around, having a great time, living their goddamn life. And like I could do that, and I feel comfortable doing that because they have e-collars on. And I demonstrated in the video. I took the e-collar off of my dog and let her go run around and called her and did a downstay and stuff like that. And she still listened to me, even though she didn't have the e-collar on. But like, I just personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing that every single day if I didn't have an e-collar on her, right? And you could say that's a problem with my training, or, oh, I need to spend more time maintaining my call-offs and working around distractions and this and that. But like, I don't want to do that. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like I just don't want to do that. And I don't think my dogs give a fuck that I'm not doing that either, and are okay with the one correction they get for blowing off a recall every month or month and a half or whatever it may be. Where, you know, getting back to, not to make this like a tool conversation, but like, I just, man, like that's the biggest thing that like, scares me with the tool ban conversation of like, you still like, you've got hacks for being able to still kind of use them where you need them to, and you still kind of do, but like, I couldn't imagine ever being in a position where it's like, you literally cannot legally use this anymore. Right. Like when I just see the benefits and the ease of use and how I'm able to, for myself, right? I'm just a dog owner, right? Like I'm a dog trainer, but like, I'm just a dog owner, just like my clients are. Like I'm able to do these things with them and feel comfortable and confident without needing to like have my identity surrounded on like in every minute of my free time going home and like training my dogs to make sure that I could go give them that freedom. Like I would rather spend more time doing what I did with them the other day than practicing fucking call offs, in a field or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, I think that's why like the whole systematizing aspect, like what we were talking about earlier, the agency accountability framework from the Kinology group, that's why something like that is so important, because it starts again, it's a framework. It's not like what was the name of that one? The minimally aversive, was it Mila or something like that?
I
can't remember the name of it. Lima.
Lima, obviously, but there's another one also. It is.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, but it's like this framework.
Life is the other one. It's
Life. There you go.
Life. Yeah.
But the thing, what happened with those is like they just sort of took it and ran with it, and then they never really said like because one of the things was like, if in the worst case scenario, yes,
yeah,
right, but they never really do it, right?
Yeah.
And so a framework like the one we're talking about, again, I encourage people to go read it, because it is, in my opinion, the move forward. So we can use tools, so we can unban them potentially, is starting to really break apart protocols in a way where you can then say, okay, this protocol works because we're maintaining animal welfare, safety, communal safety, people's livelihoods are working in favor because of the protocols we're using. They're not spending tons and tons of money trying to maintain some positive only thing that is also unreachable at some point, right? Or it's going to take me 5 years to get it. Meanwhile, my dog already bit 5 children, right? These types of frameworks, I think, are the thing that are going to move us forward, big, long-term, big picture, right? So we can finally say, okay, cool. Is this protocol worth it or not worth it, right? Yeah. And then we can finally, again, find a merging point between all of that and say, okay, cool, these protocols work, this doesn't. And then maybe at some point, and who knows, maybe this happens in 10 years, maybe in 5, we do finally reach a point of saying, here's a general guideline of what to do, where to start, how to do this, how to do that. And then you really pay trainers for the really intense troubleshooting portions of stuff. Where you have your 2 or 5% dogs that don't fit into the structure, because there are those, right? Without us always, because I think that's what's happening now. It's like, there's like camps of, you're not positive only enough, or you're like, I know people who are positive only online, but they do use pressure with flat collars or this, but they're not really balance trainers. And then even balance training, depending on who you ask, is also a dirty word. And then there's only compulsion-based training. But it's like, I say this all the time. Imagine if I'm new to dog training and I go online and I see all the infighting. I'm like, dude, I'm hiring you guys, right? Like, really? I'm hiring you for this shit?
Like,
it's insane.
I'm so like happy that I got into dog training when there was a handful of internet dog trainers at the time. You know what I mean? Like, there was not a lot. Like, Michael Ellis had his fucking DVDs out you can go watch. Ivan didn't fucking post anything and basically hid everything that he knows from the world for the longest time. Yeah. Like, he was like the ghost for a while, where like, I remember in our club and stuff, because like the West Bend Mondio Ring, the club that I was a part of, like, they are known for like, it's one of the best Mondio Ring like clubs in the world. Like, it had like every year in Worlds, like top, like 3 or 4 of the guys there were all like competing at like the highest level of Worlds. So it was a great club, and everybody knew all the top people in it, right? Todd Dunlap, the head, like, he knew Michael from back in the day. He knew Ivan. Ivan's ex-wife used to train at the club and stuff.
Yeah, sick.
And like, they used to always joke like oh, like you know, like what does Ivan do or this or that, and like there would be like people would be like, oh yeah, like I went and trained with him this one time, and you know, because he had like 2 DVDs out at the time, like there's like a healing DVD and like this was even before he had like Chase and Catch and like and all of that, but they're like, oh yeah, like the stuff that he's even putting out in the DVD is like basically opposite than what he's actually doing, because like he intentionally kept everything a fucking secret. But anyways, so the point I'm making is like there was like a couple guys out there that were putting out stuff, and like everybody had a little bit of a spin on it. Like for me, the big ones at the time were like Michael Ellis. He had his fucking way of doing things. Tyler Muto was really big at that time, who was kind of like the pet dog Michael Ellis, I always felt like. There was fucking Jeff and Sean that were doing Jeff and Sean shit, right? And that was like, those were the big names on YouTube at the time. You know what I mean? There wasn't really much else. Like Tom Davis started coming into the scene like shortly after that and everything. And then there were all the people that were putting out content trying to be like those guys, right? But but there was nothing to get super confused by. You know, like you could very clearly see the differences in like the handful, the dozen trainers that were out there, and see, oh, I could get why this person's doing this. I can get why this person's doing this. I can get why this person's doing this. And nothing really contradicted a whole lot, but there were just like different flavors to it. Mm-hmm. Now it's just gotten to a whole nother level, because now it's, dude, there's, if you look at dog trainers out there that have over 1 million followers, like there's gotta be like
there's more than a handful. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
bro, there's even that teenager. What's the name? It's Mal raised by teen. She's close to 1 million already or something.
Who is it?
She's some girl who like studied did like the MVP program with Nino as well.
I
think she's American, lives in Turkey. Dude, just go look her up on Instagram. It's like the amount of videos this girl posts a day and the amount of following and attention that she garners is insane. It's insane.
So that's what I'm saying, though, is the followings are just on a whole nother fucking level. And then tack onto it that, like, at least at the time, maybe not all of them, but when I first got started, you could tell most of the people that were putting content out there, whether they really knew what they were doing or not. Like some of them is to be debated, but like they were
questionable.
They were experienced enough in the industry where like they weren't trying to be like anybody else. Like they were like, hey, this is my system. This is how I've been doing it for a long time. It's working pretty well for me. Whatever. Now it's like, dude, like there are people getting a fucking million followers, 2 million followers that are like training their personal dog. You know, like I see some of the like, not to like draw on like some people, but like one that I see his videos all the time that I'm like, I really question some of the stuff that he like puts out and says, but has such a big following is the dude Eric and Capri. You see that dude's stuff?
Yeah.
Like it's fine. Like I don't see anything he's doing and I'm like, oh my God, this is so terrible or anything, but it is very just like, not to shit on him, but like dog owner, mediocre kind of dog training is what it feels like to me. Like very little, like it's kind of like that mesh of like a guy that watched Cesar Millan for a while and then maybe picked up a couple Michael Ellis videos that he watched, but like kind of blends the two things.
I don't know. I have a friend too. I love Cesar Millan for some things and I shit on him for other things.
Sure.
If I met him in person, I'd be fucking like blessed. I'd love to talk to the guy. You know what I mean? Like, so I'll shit on some stuff, but like with respect, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I have a friend of mine who's always like, whenever I misspeak on Caesar, he's like, bro, you know that guy like also did agility, also did this, also did that, also did this and that and the other. And I'm like,
but
you're
like.
Right.
Did
Let me
he
shut
at
the fuck
that
up,
high
right?
of
Like,
a level though? Like I don't know, like Caesar, like.
But like that's the thing, right? Like he probably knows more than your average shit trainer in your local town.
That's true. That's a great point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I'd still rather sit down with Caesar than sit down with some shit like the guy who fucking trained the dog I'm having to rehab now. I don't want to know anything about that guy. I'd rather sit down with Caesar, and it's not like Caesar and this guy have to compete at all for my attention. The Caesar would win it first. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's without even asking questions. I think most people, if you sat down with them, they all have good intentions. They all have like the best intentions for the dogs and for most things in general and helping people and whatnot. The thing I can't stand is like we're like just the nature of social media is just cannibalizing itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like at what point, I think I commented on something of Larry's the other day. He's like, bro, fucking stop copying me. Like, all you guys sound like Ivan, you sound like me, you sound like this, you're like plagiarizing. And I'm like, dude, like, what is there left to say?
Yeah.
Like we took some, like the Brelins were doing marker training so long ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were doing it with dolphins and shit. And then we said, okay, let's do it with dogs. And we popularized marker training and all this stuff.
Yeah.
We take stuff from horse trainers all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but like a lot of Nepopo, it comes from horse training.
Yeah.
Also. Right. And like, it is what it is. But like, who are we copying? Who's copying who? It's just like, is there much left to say, really? And so for me, the big takeaway is like, okay, cool. Let's find the people who are really looking into those spots where stuff isn't clear yet, instead of like, okay, yeah, this is this. Like, let's just synthesize everything.
Yeah.
Kind of. That's where the idea spawned on the whole, can we systematize it? Is, can't we just synthesize what common knowledge in dog training is, put it together, say this is it, and then let's look forward.
Yeah.
Like, what are the things we're missing? What about this? Can dogs enjoy negative reinforcement? Is that even a thing? Let's do the studies. Mm-hmm. But we can't, because we're still debating whether fucking e-collars are cool or not. You know what I mean? Like, it's a waste of time. Like, as a scientist, it's just like, where's the progression? It's just like, oh, this symbol bad, this symbol good. Meanwhile, progression is just stagnating.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's the weirdest. Not that I've been involved in many industries in my life, but it is a fucking weird industry sometimes, you know, because there's so
but it's
much
happening with music right now too, with the whole AI thing.
Yeah, there's so much complexity to it, right? Like, dog training has so much complexity, right? It's like medicine, right? There, like, I keep correlating it back to that. There is so much complexity behind it and so much scientific knowledge that you need to have in order to be good at it. But you're dealing with these people that don't and I'm not even shitting on clients, because like, I get it. I'm a fucking lazy dog owner too sometimes, right? But like, you're dealing with people that don't give a single fuck about the complexity of it, right? Like, and again, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's that impossible situation that you're in. If I can't solve the problem for you, so I need to take this unbelievably complex topic like dog training, and I need to bastardize it to the absolute most like Neanderthal level of fucking like training knowledge as I can, so you can be successful, right? And that doesn't like, I don't sit here and Josh, I promise we'll get off in exactly like 120 seconds. Like, I don't at all feel like a lot of people, like, I see post online that like, oh, I get so exhausted being the person that needs to do that, and I feel like I'm giving up my morals for it and this and that. Like I don't feel that way, right? Like, call me fucking whatever, but like, you know, I don't care. I get it, right? I get that people just want to have a good life with their dog, and people didn't get dogs to create fucking hours and hours of training work every day that they have to do in this and that. Like, I get it. Like, I don't care. But at the same time, it is interesting. That is such an interesting position to be in. And I actually think one thing that's holding the industry back is people's lack of acceptance of that, right? I think that, isn't that an interesting, actually, God, geez, we can go another fucking hour on this. Cause like,
so yeah, I don't know where I stand on that. Cause I joined, what's his name? Jacob from Yorkshire Canine. He did a free webinar for business owners.
Sure.
And he said exactly what you're saying now.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. Cause I had the same conversation with another business owner friend of mine. And it was like, yes. However, my issue is you dumb down content gets consumed and gets passed along. Now quality is lower, and so it will only go lower.
But sure. I mean, it's like the cannibalize itself thing we were talking about earlier, obviously, with like dogs. If we weed out the really bad ones, it turns into whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a line with everything, right? There's a line with everything.
I think we're looking for it. Yeah.
I think it's a problem of accepting the fact that dog owners are not going to want to be fucking dog trainers. They're going to be a little bit lazy, but always striving with the client to get them to increase that level of laziness to whatever the maximum capacity of it is. right? I think that's the boat we need to be in. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of the really skilled trainers out there, like Ivan and like a lot of other guys, right, that are like making big names for themselves and doing really good work, they don't want to work with anybody but somebody that's basically a trainer level of willingness. And like, who am I to say that they should? But like, that also kind of hurts the dog training community, I feel like, because like, you're taking these people that know how to do this as good as possible. They probably can find ways to bastardize these systems down where it doesn't kill the quality as much, right? And they can help these people a lot more, but instead they wipe their hands clean of certain aspects of dog training, like general pet owners, like fucking, dude, I got this family I work with. They're great, right? They're great people, but they're fucking lazy dog owners, right? I mean, there's a lot of clients that I have, right? Yeah. But they're great people, right? And they love their dog so much, and they just want to enjoy their dog, and they do most of the things I ask them to do, but like, they're, you know what I mean? It's just, that's the reality of it. And guys with high levels of knowledge, right, would never fucking work with that family. They would never in a million years work with that fucking family, right? So I start. You were talking the Larry Ivan podcast that they did. You're like, well, pet dog trainer, working dog trainer, but like even guys like Larry, it kills me because like, dude, do you know how selective that dude probably is of the people that he'll work with at this stage in the game?
I don't know.
I would bet. I mean, dude's only probably training 1 dog a month, 2 dogs a month, something like that. I'm sure he does his virtual things here and there, obviously. But like the amount of dogs he's really doing programs with, like full intensive programs, is probably super, super minimal. Where I struggle with sometimes, like, can somebody like that even relate to the work that I'm doing at this point, where I'm working with, you know, almost like 300 to 400 families a year? You know what I mean? Like that's like roughly the amount of new clients that we get every single year. Yeah. And we're talking the spectrum from like lazy as fucking shit, like bad dog owners, to like super high level competent dog owners and everything in between. Like, can somebody like that really relate to the things that I need to do to get success with some of those clients? I don't know, right?
I'm curious if like, so both of those cases you mentioned, they started somewhere.
Sure.
Right. So now, with all due right, they can charge whatever the fuck they want.
For sure.
And
agree.
I hope we all get there. Right.
Yeah.
So they've been in your shoes, I think. Right.
Sure.
And now I think it's sometimes it's not like, or at least this is the interpretation I get from when I hear them speak. It's not like they're weeding people out based on morals or ethics or who I can take to the next level, which also sometimes happens depending on the context. But it is also the price point itself filters people out.
Yeah, but honestly,
right?
if anything, I find like the one family I was referring to earlier is very wealthy. Right? So like, so I actually feel like sometimes
both, right?
The higher the price point you get, sometimes there is a direct correlation of those people are busier, they don't have as much time to invest because they're more, they're successful, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure they've been in our shoes. And I'm also like, I'm not at all trying to like shit on these people. Like, I think people, like you were saying, have the right to like, yeah, dude, if I was only training 1 dog a month, 2 dogs a month, whatever, like I would pick the shit that interests me. And yeah, of course I would select the people that like I feel like are actually going to like be understand, are going to want to do the things that I want to do. Like, of course, like I completely get that as well. I guess the problem that I'm getting though is dog training is not like our mission as dog trainers is to help everybody have a better life with their dog. Right?
Ideally.
Not just the 1% of people that are like hobbyist dog trainers out there. You know what I mean? So is that, if we start looking at systematizing things and creating these protocols and preaching what we should do and what we shouldn't do, are they in tune enough with really what it's going to take to help the 99%? You know what I mean? I don't know. And that's just, I'm up here like throwing my fucking hands in the air. Like, I don't know the answer to that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with what any of them are doing. But like, I feel like sometimes that I am you know, like I literally feel this sometimes myself. Like I am the fucking guy. I look around at like the dog trainers out there and the people that have these big names for themselves. And I'm like, dude, are you guys actually working with the kind of clients that I'm working with? Not the kind of dogs. They're definitely working with the kind of dogs that I'm working with, right? But are you really in tune with the dog people of the world? Like, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
No, I'm probably one of the people you're talking about. Like I price myself quite high, and I only take very intense cases, not because I'm the one choosing to take them. It's just what comes my way, and I kind of made my name for it to be this way.
Yeah.
It's like almost like people are slowly coming to me knowing I will teach them theory. We'll have like literally only theory classes. We'll do this, we'll do that. Like they understand sort of what I'm about.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes its own revolving door to some degree, right? So I'm not working half the quantity you are. So I try to keep myself grounded and still go put on free events and let people come who might not be able to pay what I charge. And just get a grasp on what people are doing, right? And what their things, what their problems are that they're facing currently. And it's the stuff like what I said earlier with the reason I like Hilliard's speech thing so much, where you the technical problem, technical solutions, it's correct every time. Like that's the kind of advice that always works, right? It's so pragmatic. It works for, even if you tell that to someone new, they'll be like, true, I did this, now I have this problem. So me make problem from solution, me now need to find new problem, right? It really makes it so that you have to think like that. It's like if, then, and. Like we all follow that. I think it's called Boolean logic or something. Whereby it's the way you make decisions. Like if I know that this decision is going to cause me this, then I might not make this decision in the first place, right? I just think generally speaking, like, me personally, if you're lazy, but like lazy to the point where you don't do what's in the best interest of you and your community's welfare and your dog's safety, and the people around you, like if you're that lazy,
I agree with you, right? Again, there's a line for that also, right? And there are absolutely clients I will turn away and not work with, right? It doesn't happen often, but I would say once or twice a year, somebody calls and wants to sign up for a board and train. They're like, I am ready to wire you $5,000 right now. And I say, no, we're not the right fit. Right? Like that does happen from time to time. There is, I would say maybe once or twice a year, a client that I need to fire for some reason, right? Like they sign up for training. It's very apparent you are going to do nothing I ask you to do. You have no interest in learning anything. Like there's nothing you're going to get out of this, right? When I say lazy dog owner, I just mean your normal person, right? Like they go do stuff with the dog. They're willing to do, you know what I mean? Like they're not like I literally, quite literally categorize myself as a lazy dog owner on this podcast all the time, right? Because like...
Dude, I say the same thing to my clients all the time. You know what the difference is though? Is for me, training's happening every second of the day.
Yes.
Right? So I make proactive decisions so that my training has very fruitful results that I can chill later, right? And I think you do the same, and most dog trainers do, and that's why we are dog trainers.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas most people are just lazy, period. That's the big differentiator, right?
So there's a line with it, and I agree with you that there are some people that it's just like you're literally just fucking lazy and don't give a fuck. And I think the caveat you put on it is it's laziness with you are intentionally ignoring or avoiding things that are like truly welfare issues for your dog, right? Or you have a dangerous dog and like, you know, you are being so fucking delusional and just doing dumb shit that's putting people at risk, right? Like those are kind of this, it's kind of the one with the other. Like I'm okay with you being a little fucking lazy as long as you're still looking out for the best interest of your dog and trying to find a solution that doesn't require a ton of extra effort for you. Like I don't have a problem with that. So
yeah, no. I think that's generally why we get along in these conversations, because we have that mindset of like it's proactive.
Yeah,
and proactive in so much as it's proactive, it's good.
Yeah.
right? So, and there's varying degrees of proactive. No one needs to be a top world competitor in a dog sports to be proactive, right? But it's like, cool. Or you're a big Hormozy fan, right? It's like the whole idea of like, if all I did today was write in my journal and I didn't write a fucking book, but I wrote in it, I wrote in my journal. That's proactive. That's sure lazy in comparison to the guy who's writing a book every day. Sure.
Yeah.
You still did what you had to do, right?
I like the lazy in comparison. That's good. Listen, man, Josh is glazing over here. We went 20 minutes longer than I told him we would. We do have to wrap this up. We will continue this again. We will do part 4. This was good. I actually really like this end part of the conversation. That was good. We'll get more into some just general, just like talking about the industry and stuff maybe next time. I think this feels like it's a good flowing kind of direction. So anything you want to leave with everybody before we hop off?
Once again, Ro, thank you. Thank you for having me on, first and foremost.
Yeah.
2, since we did talk about it and I don't have permission, but I think it's important to mention it again, go check out the agency accountability framework. Sign up so you can watch that or read it at least. I think it's a good resource to have. 2, let's just make the industry more proactive.
Love it.
There you go. You can end on that one.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, good chatting.
Thank you, man.
We will talk again soon and go from there.
Yes, man.
Yep. See you.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye, Josh. Thank you.
Of course.